Chapter 833. The five-clawed golden dragon hovered in front of them. Its body was huge and its head was high. It looked down at the two people in front of it, especially at the Empyrean fairy. It was even hostile. The overwhelming might of the dragon shrouded the fairy of 9 heavens. She was stunned as if she had been electrocuted. Her heartstrings trembled. After a long while, she spat out a word with difficulty. "Dragon! Who are you?" The five-clawed golden dragon asked first. Its voice was like rolling thunder, exploding in the Empyrean fairy's ears. The Empyrean fairy seemed to wake up from a dream. Her eyes became sharp. She glanced at the dragon and Tang Zhang and said, "There is actually a five-clawed golden dragon imprisoned under the imperial city. Tang Zhang, could it be that the dragon clan's martial arts you practice is related to this dragon?" Tang Zhang nodded and introduced, "Everyone, don't be nervous. This is the five-clawed golden dragon. This is the Empyrean fairy. I brought her here to see you." "See me? Didn't I tell you that I don't want to see strangers?" The five-clawed golden dragon was angry. After it finished speaking, it spat out a mouthful of dragon chi. A fierce wind blew, as if it wanted to sweep the Empyrean fairy up. However, this fierce wind couldn't move an inch in front of the Empyrean fairy. The Empyrean fairy stared at the five-clawed golden dragon and said, "You are a dragon, but you are imprisoned here. Interesting, interesting." The five-clawed golden dragon was angered. It let out a dragon roar and roared, "You dare to laugh at me? Hee hee, you are already imprisoned. What right do you have to roar at me like this?" The Empyrean fairy didn't seem to be afraid of the five-clawed golden dragon. Instead, she walked around the five-clawed golden dragon and looked at it with interest. Seeing that both sides were at daggers drawn, Tang Zhang quickly interjected, "Everyone calm down. The five-clawed golden dragon is my friend. In addition, the Empyrean fairy is very important to me. Let's not hurt each other." "Are you the Empyrean fairy?" The five-clawed golden dragon was shocked. Its huge eyes stared straight at the Empyrean fairy. "Aren't you dead? How did he come back to life?" Seeing that the five-clawed golden dragon actually knew about the Empyrean fairy, Tang Zhang was shocked and said, "You actually know her?" "Of course I know. The Empyrean fairy is so famous. How could I not know? The Empyrean fairy has the 9 yin saint body, which is the same as your 9 yang saint body. They are both rare constitutions. And the Empyrean fairy is the best of the 9 yin holy body. Besides, she has another identity, and it's hard for her not to attract attention." "Shut up!" The Empyrean fairy suddenly rebuked and stopped him. Tang Zhang was slightly stunned. He didn't know about the Empyrean fairy's origin, but it seemed that he had overlooked the most important part. The five-clawed golden dragon knew a lot of things, but he didn't ask it. Tang Zhang turned to the Empyrean fairy and said, "Fu Yao, maybe I shouldn't ask this question, but since I brought you to see the five-clawed golden dragon, this is my biggest secret. This has already shown my sincerity, so why can't you be honest with me? This is good for both of us." The Empyrean fairy looked at Tang Zhang with a complicated gaze. She knew that if Tang Zhang's words were reasonable, then even if she didn't say it, Tang Zhang could find out from the five-clawed golden dragon's mouth. "Do you really want to know about me? Sometimes, knowing more is not a good thing." The Empyrean fairy said deeply. Tang Zhang nodded firmly. "Yes, I want to know." The Empyrean fairy looked at the five-clawed golden dragon and said, "Then tell me." The five-clawed golden dragon laughed and said, "Those people may have died, but our dragon clan's longevity banquet is long, so these things are still known." The Empyrean fairy snorted coldly. The Empyrean fairy's true identity is the Emperor of Heaven's daughter. This is a secret that very few people know. However, for some unknown reason, she was personally trapped in the mountain river map by the Emperor of Heaven. After the Emperor of Heaven died, the world changed and history changed. The Empyrean fairy escaped from the mountain river map and met Qin Shi Huang, who helped him complete his hegemony. Later on, the Empyrean fairy mysteriously disappeared. I heard that she died, but it turns out that she didn't die. The Emperor of Heaven's daughter. Tang Zhang was dumbfounded. He was afraid that even Tian Chanzi didn't know this, so he didn't react to the Empyrean fairy's name. This name alone sounded very prominent. A person who dared to be called the Emperor of Heaven was naturally not an ordinary person. Looking at Tang Zhang's reaction, the five-clawed golden dragon guessed what he was thinking and said, The Emperor of Heaven was a descendant of Fuxi. His cultivation was extremely shocking, so he was crowned as the Emperor of Heaven, the Lord of Heaven. You can imagine what it means to be the Lord of the Heavens at that time. Tang Zheng looked at the Empyrean fairy with shining eyes. It turned out that her background was so great. Ji Wuxiang mentioned the ancient Fu clan, which probably knew the Empyrean fairy's true identity from somewhere, so they valued her so much. Imagine, if Ji Wuxiang confirmed Fu Yao's identity, what would happen? What action would he take? Or what use would Fu Yao have for him? Tang Zheng couldn't figure it out, so he asked the question in his heart. Hearing this, the Empyrean fairy was startled and unnatural. She asked, "You mean that Ji Wuxiang also knows my identity as the Emperor of Heaven's daughter?" Tang Zheng hesitated and shook his head. "I'm not sure, but I have to be careful. This person is unpredictable. However, if he really knows this, what can he do? What use do you have for him?" The Empyrean fairy's eyes flickered, and she hesitated. Obviously, she didn't want to mention it. The five-clawed golden dragon laughed. "The Empyrean fairy is very useful. She should be the last survivor of the Fu clan, and only he knows where the gate of heaven is." Hearing this, the Empyrean fairy's face became very ugly, and she glared at the five-clawed golden dragon. "What is the gate of heaven?" Tang Zheng asked curiously, thinking that this trip was worth it. Not only did he find out about the Emperor of Heaven's daughter, but now there was a gate of heaven. Just the name alone was not simple. The five-clawed golden dragon ignored the look in the Empyrean fairy's eyes and said, "The gate of heaven is a secret place of the Fu clan. It is said that it hides a huge secret and countless treasures. If one enters the gate of heaven and obtains these treasures, then one can become the new Emperor of Heaven. This not only represents supreme glory, but also endless power. Not many people can resist this temptation. The Empyrean fairy is equivalent to the key to opening the gate of heaven. Therefore, once her identity is exposed, it will naturally attract countless people." Tang Zheng suddenly realized that the Empyrean fairy probably also knew this, which was why she lived in seclusion after coming to the capital in order to protect her identity. However, her name was not changed, and no one would have thought that Ji Wuxiang, with just a name and her actions, would be able to connect her to a person from 1,000 years ago. This caused her identity to be in danger of being exposed. The gate of heaven is a secret place of the Fu clan. How can outsiders be allowed to enter? No one should even think about touching it. The Empyrean fairy said coldly, emitting a murderous aura. The five-clawed golden dragon laughed. "You may think this way, but others will not think this way. No one will ignore such a huge opportunity." Tang Zheng recalled Ji Wuxiang's expression and his heart trembled, saying, "I'm guessing that Ji Wuxiang is most likely because of this matter. That old fox, he looks harmless, but he actually has this idea. If anyone dares to have this idea, I will definitely not let them go. I want to meet this Ji Wuxiang," the Empyrean fairy said resolutely. Tang Zheng was shocked. "It was not easy for me to brush him off. If you take the initiative to deliver yourself to him, won't it be dangerous? If we allow him to scheme behind our backs, then it will be even more dangerous. Moreover, this is not my style. I, the Empyrean fairy, have always been straightforward and straightforward. I want to find out his true goal." Tang Zheng speechlessly rolled his eyes. He did not know whether this was a good thing or a bad thing. "Let's think about it at length," Tang Zheng tactfully advised. He was still not at ease with Ji Wuxiang. This person was evil, and he did not want him to know the real situation of the Empyrean fairy. "You are a grown man. What are you being so wishy-washy about? Could it be that you are afraid that he will harm me?" the Empyrean fairy asked unhappily. Tang Zheng smiled embarrassedly. Wasn't this exactly what he was worried about? This is no longer a world filled with experts. In this world, if anyone wants to harm me, then they have to consider their own strength. The Empyrean fairy said confidently. During this period of time, the Empyrean fairy had gained enough understanding of the modern world. Although the modern world was technologically advanced, in terms of personal strength, she was confident that no one could be her opponent. This was why she was so confident. Tang Zheng was speechless. The five-clawed golden dragon laughed and said, "Tang Zheng, you are actually worried about the safety of the Empyrean fairy. Your worries are groundless. Do you know how high her cultivation is?" This was a question that had always puzzled Tang Zheng. He looked at the five-clawed golden dragon blankly and asked, "How high?" "If I am not mistaken, she should be in the apotheosis stage." The five-clawed golden dragon deduced. The Empyrean fairy did not refute, which obviously meant that she agreed. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He had been guessing how powerful the Empyrean fairy was, but he did not expect that she was in the apotheosis stage, which was much higher than Tian Chanzi. Tian Chanzi had only cultivated to the Yuanying stage. The apotheosis stage. Tang Zheng suddenly remembered something. He looked at the five-clawed golden dragon with a complicated expression. The five-clawed golden dragon guessed his thoughts and said, "If someone in the apotheosis stage can break the formation of this imperial city, I will be able to see the light of day again." Tang Zheng nodded suddenly. This was what he had agreed with the five-clawed golden dragon. That was why the five-clawed golden dragon had helped him time and time again. Now that there was a ready-made master of the apotheosis stage here, didn't it mean that the five-clawed golden dragon could be free soon? The five-clawed golden dragon's eyes became deep, but it could not hide the excitement in them. It had been imprisoned here for hundreds of years and had been looking forward to seeing the light of day again. However, if it waited for Tang Zheng to reach the apotheosis stage, it would take a long time. Now that there was a ready-made candidate, of course it would be happy. The five-clawed golden dragon winked at Tang Zheng. Its meaning was very clear. It wanted him to ask the Empyrean fairy to help it out. At this moment, Tang Zheng hesitated. The five-clawed golden dragon had a lot of resentment against human beings. It was imprisoned here by human beings. What if it took revenge after it was freed? Chapter 834. The five-clawed golden dragon obviously didn't notice Tang Zheng's worry and continued to give him meaningful looks. The Empyrean fairy raised her eyebrows and asked, "What's the matter?" Tang Zheng had no choice but to tell her the truth. The five-clawed golden dragon is trapped by the Imperial City's restriction array. Only those in the spirit severing stage can break the restriction array and regain its freedom. You are in the spirit severing stage, so I want to ask for your help. The Empyrean fairy coldly snorted and refused without hesitation. "No." Ha! Tang Zheng and the five-clawed golden dragon didn't expect her to refuse so decisively. They looked at her in surprise and asked, "Why not?" The Empyrean fairy looked at the five-clawed golden dragon indifferently and said, "No means no." Tang Zheng rolled his eyes and guessed a few things. In any case, the Empyrean fairy was also a woman and had a woman's common trait, holding a grudge. She was obviously the same. Just now, the five-clawed golden dragon had exposed her true identity, so she refused the five-clawed golden dragon's request. The five-clawed golden dragon didn't understand this and was indignant. "You help me out, this won't do you any harm, so why don't you agree? Why do you ask so many questions?" The Empyrean fairy curled her lips and said coldly. Tang Zheng sighed inwardly. This five-clawed golden dragon was probably a single dragon. It didn't know how to read the mind of the opposite sex, so how could it pick up other female dragons? The five-clawed golden dragon angrily roared and swayed its body, as if it wanted to teach the Empyrean fairy a lesson. However, the Empyrean fairy was not afraid at all. Instead, she took a few steps forward and approached the five-clawed golden dragon. Her thin body was in sharp contrast to the huge monster in front of her, but her momentum was not weak at all. The five-clawed golden dragon glared at her and opened his mouth wide as if he wanted to swallow her. But in the end, he restrained himself and said unwillingly, "If it weren't for Tang Zheng's face, I would have swallowed you in one gulp." The Empyrean fairy sneered, "You don't have to give him face. I'm standing right here. You can try swallowing me." The five-clawed golden dragon was reluctant to admit his mistake. He was trying to regain some face. But the Empyrean fairy had unexpectedly rebutted him. He didn't know how to respond. The five-clawed golden dragon was extremely embarrassed. It angrily turned its head away. Out of sight, out of mind. Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at this scene. He originally thought that the five-clawed golden dragon was so high and mighty that no one could control it. But now, it seemed that this was not the case. Everything had its vanquisher. The Empyrean fairy was actually able to subdue it and make it suffer, but there was nothing it could do. In fact, he was relieved. If the Empyrean fairy had agreed to his request, the five-clawed golden dragon would have been freed. This meant that there were too many unknowns that he couldn't control. This was not a situation he wanted to see. Now that the Empyrean fairy had refused, everything could be maintained. This was the best result. The five-clawed golden dragon was angry and stopped talking to them. Tang Zhang simply left the imperial city with the Empyrean fairy and quietly returned home. The person who was following them had already left, so he didn't notice the two of them coming out of the imperial city. The two of them also didn't know that they were being followed. This was enough to show how powerful the person who was following them was to be able to escape their perception. The next day, the Empyrean fairy couldn't wait to find Tang Zheng and ask him about Ji Wuxiang's residence. Tang Zheng also didn't know where Ji Wuxiang lived. This person's whereabouts were secretive. It wouldn't be easy to find him unless he took the initiative to contact him. Since the Empyrean fairy had made up her mind to see him, then he would ask him out and meet him openly to see if he could find some clues. Tang Zheng found Ji Wuxiang's business card, which was given to him at the club. Yan Lu Yun once said that this business card was not simple and that many people wanted to get such a business card. But now, Tang Zheng didn't care much about this business card. He dialed the number on the card. After a few beeps, Ji Wuxiang's voice came from the other end. "Young Master Tang called me. What a surprise." Tang Zheng was slightly surprised. He hadn't spoken yet, but the other party had already guessed it. This was really not simple. "Boss Ji, didn't you say yesterday that you wanted to see Miss Fu Yao? Where should we meet?" Tang Zheng went straight to the point. "Haha, young Master Tang is really a straightforward person. I'm fishing in the suburbs of Beijing. You can come." Tang Zheng and the mysterious maiden of the Nine Heavens drove to the agreed location in the suburbs of the capital. This was a river. The river was very deep and very clear. Not far away was a green mountain, which was completely different from the tall buildings of the capital. Ji Wuxiang sat alone on the riverbank with a fishing rod in his hand. He leisurely stared at the river. Suddenly, the corner of his mouth rose and he said with a meaningful smile, "The fish took the bait." With a flick of his wrist, he raised the fishing rod and a large fish flew out of the water and landed in his hand. Tang Zheng and the Empyrean fairy just happened to see this scene. Tang Zheng praised, "Boss Ji is really in a good mood to find such a place with green mountains and clear water." Ji Wuxiang turned around to look at the two. His eyes fell on the Empyrean fairy and said, "I believe this must be Miss Fu Yao." Ji Wuxiang stared at him as if he wanted to see through him. However, after staring for a long time, he was unable to see anything. Ji Wuxiang was just an ordinary person. There was nothing special about him. This made the Empyrean fairy disappointed. "I heard that you wanted to see me," the Empyrean fairy said. Ji Wuxiang nodded with a smile and said, "Yes, I have long heard of Miss Fu Yao's famous name. To be able to meet you today is an honor of 3 lifetimes." The Empyrean fairy didn't bat an eyelid. Miss Fu Yao's surname is very rare and very ancient. "I wonder where Miss Fu Yao is from?" Ji Wuxiang asked. The Empyrean fairy said, "What's so important about this? I am very interested in history, so I like to study these things. In particular, the various surnames of Wuxia all have their own historical origins. Miss Fu Yao's surname is especially special. It is said that you are a descendant of Fuxi. I wonder if Miss Fu Yao can dispel my doubts? You will be disappointed. I do not have a fixed residence. The 4 corners of the world are my home. I do not know where I am from." The Empyrean fairy refused. Ji Wuxiang didn't seem to be surprised by this answer. He smiled calmly and said, "Actually, there are many people from the Fu clan in history. Several thousand years ago, when Qin Shi Huang unified the world, there was one person who assisted him. That person was from the Fu clan. Speaking of which, it is quite a coincidence that this person not only has the same surname as you, but even your name is the same. You are both called Fu Yao." "Oh, there are many people with the same surname and name. What's so strange about that?" Fu Yao said without leaving a trace. Ji Wuxiang nodded and said, "That makes sense. It is just that there are very few people with the surname Fu, and even their names are the same. That is why it is a bit strange." Tang Zheng interrupted and said, "Director Ji, I have already said this before. You didn't believe me, but now you should believe me." "Young Master Tang must be joking. I have never doubted your words. I just thought that Miss Fu Yao knew a bit more, so I wanted to meet her in person. Now that my wish has been fulfilled, I must thank young Master Tang." Ji Wuxiang said as he cupped his hands towards Tang Zheng. I have already caught a few fish. Why don't you stay and enjoy the delicious food before you leave? Ji Wuxiang urged him to stay. No need. Tang Zheng refused, indicating that the Empyrean fairy could leave. But the Empyrean fairy turned a blind eye to it. She slowly raised her hand and pointed at Ji Wuxiang. Her movements were very slow, but if it was a normal person, they would not be able to escape from this finger. However, as long as Ji Wuxiang knew martial arts, he would definitely be able to escape this calamity. With the Empyrean fairy's strength, this seemingly simple finger was definitely not to be underestimated. It must be known that the high and mighty sword god had died under this finger. Ji Wuxiang was very clear on this point, so when he saw this finger he turned pale with fright and exclaimed, Miss Fu Yao, what are you doing? Tang Zheng was also shocked by her actions, but he immediately understood her intentions. Although she had seen Ji Wuxiang, she was definitely the same as him and did not discover anything. Therefore, she was not willing to give up. Before leaving, she directly made a move to test him. The Empyrean fairy did not care about the rules of this world, so she naturally did not care about Ji Wuxiang's illustrious identity. Therefore, she did not hesitate to make a move. Tang Zheng could block this attack, but he chose to wait and see. He also wanted to know how Ji Wuxiang would react. Ji Wuxiang's expression changed greatly, and he retreated in panic. However, he was unable to escape this finger. The fingertip had already reached his chest, and there was a faint sound of wind and thunder. If he was hit, he was afraid that he would not be able to keep his life. If a person really knew martial arts, in this life and death situation, they would instinctively counterattack because no one wanted to die. However, Ji Wuxiang still did not react. He was dumbstruck, like a fish on a chopping board, helplessly waiting for death. The fingertip finally hit Ji Wuxiang, and Ji Wuxiang flew out like a kite with a broken string. With a splash, he fell into the river, splashing up snow-white waves. Tang Zheng was dumbstruck and said, He's dead. The Empyrean fairy's expression was grave and said, He won't die. Ji Wuxiang's reaction was out of her expectations. In this life and death situation, he actually did not put up any resistance, which meant that he really did not know martial arts. If Ji Wuxiang really did put up any resistance, the Empyrean fairy would not have shown mercy and would have really taken his life. That was because she did not like people deliberately mystifying and deceiving her in front of her. But until the last moment, Ji Wuxiang's performance was similar to a person who did not even have the strength to truss a chicken. Therefore, she instead held back. This seemingly lightning-like attack did not hurt him at all. Ji Wuxiang floated up from the river and drank a few mouthfuls of water. He was like a drowning dog, battered and exhausted, and shouted, Young Master Tang, Miss Fu Yao, what are you doing? Tang Zheng and Fu Yao looked at each other and said, Manager Ji, I'm sorry. Fu Yao did not know that you did not know martial arts, so she wanted to spar with you. Please forgive her. Ji Wuxiang swam to the shore and bitterly smiled with dejection. This is truly an unexpected calamity. Miss Fu Yao, I'm just a person who does not even have the strength to truss a chicken. How can I be compared to experts like you? Next time, please remind me before we fight. If I had admitted defeat, I wouldn't have suffered such a loss. The Empyrean fairy's face was filled with disappointment. Manager Ji, I'll send you back. Tang Zheng was a little embarrassed. No need, my car is over there. I'll go back by myself. Since that was the case, Tang Zheng did not want to stay any longer, so he got in the car with Fu Yao and left. Ji Wuxiang's body was dripping wet as he looked at the direction where the car disappeared with an unfathomable smile. He muttered, You want to test me? Haha. Chapter 835. The water vapor on Ji Wuxiang's body evaporated completely. If Tang Zheng and the Empyrean fairy saw this, they would be shocked. This was not an ability that ordinary people could have, and they did not see Ji Wuxiang's extraordinary skills at all. Even the Empyrean fairy's probing did not succeed. This not only showed that the other party was strong and good at hiding, but also that his temperament was not comparable to ordinary people. In the face of the threat of death, he could control his body's instincts and remain indifferent. I can be sure that Fu Yao is the Empyrean fairy, Ji Wuxiang said lightly, his eyes flashing with a strange light. Haha, Tang Zheng is really lucky. He even found the Empyrean fairy from 1,000 years ago and made her willingly stay by his side. It's really enviable. He changed the topic. However, this is a good thing for me. It gives me the opportunity to enter the Divine Gate. Once I crack the secret of the Divine Gate, everything in the world will be completely under my control. I will have the final say in the chess game of the world. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised, and his ordinary face revealed a soul-stirring majesty and arrogance. The Empyrean fairy's strength is profound, and I have to find a way to deal with her. I can't succeed alone, but borrowing strength to fight strength is my strength. 100 changes. Star Master has been silent for too long. It's time to come out and walk. Tang Zheng's peaceful days did not last long. The Yan family had been sending people to investigate in southern Yunnan and reported as soon as there was any movement. A few days ago, there was finally news. It was said that there was a loud noise in the 100,000 mountains and the mountains were shaking. The official conclusion given by the government was that there was an earthquake in the mountains to appease the people. However, the Yan family consulted several earthquake experts. It was said that the monitoring data was definitely not signs of an earthquake. It was still impossible to conclude what caused the loud noise and the shaking of the mountains. The 100,000 mountains were occupied by the multiform star sovereign, and ever since the multiform star sovereign disappeared from the island nation, there had been no trace of him, which puzzled Tang Zheng. How could he turn a blind eye to the unusual movement this time? Although the 100,000 mountains was a dragon's pool and a tiger's den, he decided to charge in without hesitation. He had an intuition that the 100-form Star Lord, who had been missing for a long time, was probably in the 100,000 mountains. The big commotion this time was probably related to him. Could it be that he was plotting something? No matter what he was doing, Tang Zheng decided to go and investigate, and this trip was extremely dangerous. Marshall and the others took the initiative to volunteer, but Tang Zheng had no choice but to refuse. In the end, he asked the Empyrean fairy to go with him to the 10,000 Great Mountains. The others had a lot of complaints in their stomachs, but Tang Zheng could only turn a blind eye to them. Not only were there countless demonic beasts running amok in the 100,000 mountains, there was also the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign. If they went, it would instead divert his attention, which would be even more dangerous. Tang Zheng brought the Empyrean fairy and Xiao Bai and took a plane out of the capital, landing in southern Yunnan on the same day. At the exit of the airport, there was a sea of people. Many men and women were gathered at the entrance of the airport, holding banners, photos, and so on. Yo, which celebrity are you seeing? Who says it's not? Don't you see them holding up the photo? The girl in the photo is so beautiful. Tang Zheng heard the discussions of the people nearby and looked over. Sure enough, he saw a few huge photos. Linger. He was shocked. The person in the photo was actually Tang Linger, and the banner clearly had the words, Tang Linger Fan Club, written on it. Tang Zheng couldn't help laughing. He hadn't seen Linger for a long time. He knew that she was busy flying around every day, so busy that her feet didn't touch the ground, but he didn't expect to see her fans here. He couldn't help but feel gratified. Linger was simple and honest, which was incompatible with the foul atmosphere of the entertainment circle. However, with his protection, she didn't have to worry about this at all. Suddenly, there was a burst of screams and cheers from the crowd. A group of people walked out. The fans wanted to rush up crazily, but they were stopped by the security guards. What's the matter? Empyrean Fairy asked. She had never seen Linger before. Tang Zheng smiled faintly. I saw an old friend. Linger walked out surrounded by a group of people. Linger waved and smiled at the fans. The fans were so excited that they kept shouting her name. Tang Linger had always been a pure girl. Every frown, every smile, and every movement revealed a sense of freshness, which was completely different from the sexy style of other female celebrities. She gave people a feeling of bathing in the spring breeze. Linger kept smiling and nodding her head. Suddenly, she saw a person in the crowd. Her eyes lit up and she exclaimed, Master! Her voice wasn't loud, but the people around her still heard it. A few staff members opened their eyes in suspicion. Master? Could it be that they heard wrong? Only Amy's ears twitched, and she started searching in the crowd. As Linger's manager, he knew that there was only one person in the world who could make Linger so surprised and call him master. Sure enough, he immediately found Tang Zheng in the crowd. Linger's reaction was much faster than his, and she was already running toward Tang Zhang like a gust of wind. Linger's abnormal behavior immediately attracted everyone's attention. Everyone's eyes followed her figure. Bang! Linger threw herself into Tang Zhang's arms, buried her head in his chest, and hugged him tightly. The surprise on her face was indescribable. Everyone was stunned, as if they had been immobilized. Amy slapped her head, frowned and complained incessantly. "Oh no, this is big trouble. Linger has never had any scandals. This time the whole country knows about it. This is not a good thing." Linger had always been a pure girl. If there were any scandals, it would directly destroy her path to stardom. But Tang Zhang was Amy's boss, so there was nothing he could do. The other staff members didn't know Tang Zhang's identity. They were indignant and wanted to eat him alive. They wanted to stop it, but Amy hurriedly stopped them. "Don't get involved. Sister Amy, who is this person? How can you do this?" Amy's face was bitter, and she said, "Don't ask about things you shouldn't know." The fans finally reacted as if they had just woken up from a dream. Immediately, there was an uproar, and countless cameras recorded this scene. Then these people began to shout and attack Tang Zhang. "Who is this person? How dare you hug my goddess? I'll kill you. Yes, this person is not as handsome as I am. How dare you blaspheme my goddess? Drag him out and beat him." Seeing that he had aroused the anger of the crowd, Tang Zhang did not know whether to laugh or cry as he patted Linger's back and said, "All right, just give me a hug. Otherwise, it would be strange if they didn't tear me apart." Linger turned a deaf ear to him. She was reluctant to leave his arms and said coquettishly, "Master, Linger missed you so much. I've been working outside and didn't have time to see you." "It's me who didn't see you. I didn't do enough. Master is doing great things. How can you be distracted by Linger? It's Linger's fault. I didn't share Master's burdens." Linger pouted and said, feeling wronged. "They dare to scold Master. I'll explain to them. Master is the most important person to Linger. They can't scold him." Linger was indignant. Tang Zhang held her hand and said, "Linger, forget it. They are your fans. They have good intentions." Linger hesitated and nodded. "Okay, I'll listen to Master. Let's leave here first. Otherwise, I'll be pierced by thousands of arrows." Tang Zhang joked. Linger smiled sweetly and said, "Master is so powerful. You won't be afraid of them. Even if there is danger, Linger will stand in front of Master to protect Master." Empyrean Fairy had been looking at Linger with interest. Seeing her call Tang Zhang Master, she was slightly surprised but didn't say anything. Seeing that the exit was blocked by the crowd, Linger said awkwardly, "There are so many people. How are we going to get out?" "I'm here." Tang Zhang held Linger's hand. His body flashed and the crowd was forced to make a path. Everyone wanted to get closer but found that they couldn't. Tang Zhang and Linger quickly passed through, and the road was once again filled with people. They all looked around and kept looking around, only to find that Linger was still there. Seeing the two disappear, AI Me breathed a sigh of relief. He had heard a little about his boss's abilities and knew how powerful he was. However, he still chased after her, but was stopped by enthusiastic fans and media reporters. "Sister AI Me, as Miss Linger's manager, can you tell us who that man was? What is his relationship with Miss Linger? Are they a couple?" This series of questions gave AI Me a headache. Although Tang Zhang said that Linger was his sister, how could a sister call her brother Master? Moreover, AI Me also found out that Tang Zhang didn't have a biological sister. This showed that the relationship between the two was very thought-provoking. However, he didn't dare to leak a word or two, so he hurriedly said perfunctorily, "This is Miss Linger's private matter, so I have no comment. Everyone, please make way and let us pass." Although the crowd didn't give up, they eventually squeezed their way out. In the end, the two sides met in a secluded corner. AI Me looked at Tang Zhang with mixed feelings, and then subconsciously looked at the mysterious lady of the 9 heavens beside him. Immediately, she couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air, and her eyes lit up like an incandescent light bulb. She exclaimed, "Boss, the young lady beside you is too beautiful. She completely beats most of the current celebrities. No, she completely beats all of the current celebrities, of course, except for Ling. The last sentence was a bit untrue. In terms of beauty and temperament, the Empyrean Fairy definitely beats Linger. Linger was as pure as a fairy, but the Empyrean fairy was the most beautiful of all fairies. Naturally, she overshadowed Linger. Ai Mi's heart was in turmoil. She thought that if this lady also entered the entertainment industry, then many of the other female celebrities wouldn't be able to compete. Those famous celebrities who boasted that they could captivate the birds and beasts, outshining the moon and putting the flowers to shame, were instantly outshone and turned into ugly ducklings. Only this one was worthy of being called a phoenix. The Empyrean fairy had no reaction to Ai Mi's praise. She was expressionless. Instead, her eyes were constantly sizing up Linger. Linger was also quietly sizing up the Empyrean fairy. She was a person transformed from a few hundred-years-old ginseng, so her senses were naturally sharper than others. She clearly felt that the overly beautiful woman beside her master was not simple. Chapter 836. The two women looked at each other with intriguing eyes. Tang Zheng didn't want to wait for those crazy fans to catch up, so he quickly said, "Let's get out of here first." Ai Mi nodded as if waking up from a dream and said, "Yes, let's get out of here first. Our car is over there. Boss, this beauty, please." When the others saw Ai Mi coming over with a few people and personally opening the door for Tang Zheng, they all showed a puzzled look. Ai Mi was usually not so amiable. He was a gold medal agent, and these people had to listen to his orders. If they did something wrong, they would be scolded. But he seemed to be too respectful to this young man, even a little in awe. Everyone guessed the identity of this person. These staff members actually belonged to Tang Zheng's entertainment company, but they had never seen their real boss, so they didn't know him. But after all, they were in the entertainment industry. Some smart people gradually thought of Tang Zheng. They seemed to have seen this face somewhere. They searched the internet with their mobile phones. In an instant, they knew that this person was actually the mysterious knight who had a scandal with the Swedish royal princess Anne. Suddenly, these people became more and more gossipy, and looked at Tang Zheng with burning eyes. But these people didn't have a chance to be in the same car with Tang Zheng. Ai Mi personally acted as the driver and took the three people to the hotel where they were staying. Linger was very excited as she chattered to him about what she had seen and experienced during this period of time. Tang Zheng listened quietly and praised her from time to time, causing her to be overjoyed. Empyrean Fairy and Linger also exchanged names. Although they both felt that each other was not simple, they did not say it in front of Ai Mi. The motorcade stopped at the entrance of a 5-star hotel in the city center. The hotel's electronic screen showed the words, "Welcome Miss Tang Linger to the hotel." This was the request of the local government of Dianan. This time, Linger was invited to sign a contract as the tourism ambassador of Dianan. Dianan was a tourist attraction. The scenery was beautiful and charming, which was very consistent with Linger's temperament. This was a win-win situation, so the local government attached great importance to it and sent a high-ranking official to preside over the relevant affairs. This official had a big head and big ears. He directly walked over from the entrance of the hotel and wanted to hold Linger's hand, but his eyes were fixed on Empyrean Fairy. As for the others, they were completely ignored by him. He was used to being high and mighty. Although these people were very popular in the entertainment industry, they could only greet these parents with a smile. As for Tang Zheng and Ai Mi, they were naturally treated as his followers. He didn't even bother to look at them. "Miss Tang Linger, I'm Long Tingfei, the organizer of this signing ceremony. I'm very happy to meet Miss Tang Linger. Coming to Dianan is like coming home. Don't be polite with me. In Dianan, no matter what you want, I'll do it." Listening to his self-introduction and looking at his fat head and big ears, he was called Long Tingfei. He was like a fat pig. Can he fly? As for his words and deeds, they were very different from the ordinary officials. They were very frivolous. She didn't know who sent him to take charge this time. Of course, Linger still smiled and politely shook hands with him. When she wanted to let go, she found that the other party's hand was firmly grasped and she couldn't break free. Long Tingfei, however, acted as if nothing had happened. He held Linger's hand, but his eyes were staring straight at Empyrean Fairy. He said with a cheeky smile, "May I ask who this beauty is? She's really beautiful." Empyrean Fairy turned a deaf ear and didn't look at him. Seeing the awkward atmosphere, Ai Mi quickly came up to smooth things over and said, "Director Long, Miss Tang Linger must be tired. Let's go to the room to rest first." Long Tengfei reluctantly let go of his hand. Tang Linger looked unhappy and pouted. She had been in the entertainment circle for so long. Although she had always been in a state of protection, she knew that she would meet many people in this line of work, many things would make her unhappy. However, she was slowly learning to deal with it. For example, this handshake, the other party clearly had bad intentions, but as long as they didn't touch her bottom line, she wouldn't flare up. Tang Zheng really wanted to flare up just now. If AI Me hadn't acted according to the situation, Long Tengfei would have been lying on the ground. He didn't hide the disgust on his face. He agreed to let Linger enter the entertainment circle, but it wasn't for this kind of person to take advantage of her. Long Tengfei, also surnamed Long, only one word different from Long Tingyu. Could it be that he is also a member of the Long family in Dianan? Tang Zheng muttered. However, this person was completely different from Long Tingyu's jade tree. He had a fat head and big ears, and was completely like a fat pig. Humph, back then, Long Tingyu was also taken advantage of by me, and even died in the end. You, a fat pig head, dare to have ideas about Linger. You're tired of living, I don't care who you are. Of course, Tang Zheng wasn't a homicidal maniac. He wouldn't really kill Linger just because he shook hands with him. After all, Linger was a public figure, and there were many people who coveted her beauty. If he killed them all, he was afraid that even his war soul sword would be cut open. However, it was not appropriate to cause a ruckus at the entrance of the hotel, and it would have a bad impact on Linger. Thus, the group of people went upstairs. Long Tengfei's eyes would occasionally wander between Tang Linger and Empyrean Fairy, lingering on. The officials of Dianan had arranged a luxurious executive suite for Tang Linger. When the door was opened, Long Tengfei wanted to go in, but he was stopped by Tang Zheng. Seeing that his path was blocked, Long Tengfei raised his eyebrows and said angrily, "Get out of the way." Seeing that Tang Zheng was indifferent, the displeasure on Long Tengfei's face grew even stronger, and he said, "Miss Linger, let your staff leave, we still have business to discuss, can he afford to delay?" AI Me stood awkwardly at the side, wanting to help, but was stopped by Tang Zheng's stern gaze. Tang Zheng narrowed his eyes, looked at Long Tengfei and berated, "Scram, you dare to have ill intentions towards Linger, you must be tired of living." Long Tengfei was stunned for a moment, then flew into a rage. He was indeed a member of the Long family in Dianan, but he was from a side branch. He could be considered Long Tingyu's cousin. He relied on the influence of the Long family in Dianan to rise in the officialdom. Originally, he was not the one in charge of this matter, but when he heard that Tang Linger had come, he snatched this job. Tang Linger's rapid rise to fame naturally attracted his attention. Before, they had no interaction, so even if he had dirty thoughts in his heart, he couldn't implement them. Now, Tang Linger had taken the initiative to deliver herself to him, so how could he let her go? He knew a lot about the people and things in the entertainment industry. Many female stars who had come to Dianan had not been able to escape his clutches. This was one of his hobbies. Looking at the usually high and mighty female stars lying under him on TV, he would feel an inexplicable sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. Therefore, he was never tired of it. This time, he extended his claws to Tang Linger. However, he never thought that he would have a bad start. Before he even started, he was ruined by a guy who didn't open his eyes. For such people, he thought that he had 100 ways to deal with them. Moreover, in front of beautiful women, especially two of the best beauties of course, he would not hold back in the slightest. He thought that he was a bastard and roared, "You blind guy, do you want to die? Why don't you ask around? In this Dianan, I, Long Tengfei, am a man of my word. If anyone dares to challenge me, be careful that I will not let you leave Dianan." He pointed out his power simply and rudely. Not only did he want to intimidate the boy in front of him, but he also wanted to intimidate the two beauties so that they would obediently bow down to his bastard aura and let him do whatever he wanted. Tang Zheng frowned. Originally, he wanted to call him back, but he didn't expect him to be so stubborn. Then he couldn't be blamed. Tang Zheng was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. With lightning speed, his huge body flew directly to the stairs at the end of the corridor. Then with a muffled dong-dong-dong sound, he fell down the stairs and no longer made a sound. Suddenly, many people stared at him with their mouths agape, especially Long Tengfei's entourage. His face changed greatly. He pointed at Tang Zhang and finally squeezed out a sentence with difficulty. You dare to hurt Director Long? You wait and see. And you, this time, the image ambassador thing is over. Amy wanted to say something but stopped. This cooperation was a win-win thing. If it was over, it would be a pity. However, Tang Zhang was present, so he had no right to speak. He could only be silent. Other colleagues didn't understand this. Seeing the group of officials flee, they all felt injustice and criticized. You are causing a lot of losses to Miss Tang Linger, do you know? Shut up. Amy had already seen that Tang Zheng's face was very gloomy. She quickly shouted and stopped everyone. She smiled bitterly at Tang Zheng and Linger and said, Let's go into the room first. The other staff members were arranged to have their own rooms, while Tang Zheng, Linger, Empyrean Fairy, and Amy entered the suite, leaving the others puzzled. Tang Zheng had been silent since he entered the room. His face was frighteningly dark. Amy knew that Tang Zheng was protective of Linger, so she quickly took the initiative to admit her mistake. Boss, all of this is a misunderstanding. We didn't expect to encounter such a thing when we came to Dianan. Tang Zheng snorted and said, Didn't the company do the corresponding investigation when cooperating with people? If it wasn't for me, what would have happened to all of you? If anything were to happen to Linger, who would be able to bear this responsibility? Amy had never seen Tang Zheng so angry since she knew him. She was silent, lowered her head and said, This is the shortcoming of our work. Master, this is not Sister Ai's fault. Sister Ai is usually very good to me. She has blocked many things for me. Tang Linger couldn't bear it and pleaded for Ai. Tang Zheng snorted and said, Since Linger pleaded for you, then I will not pursue it for the time being. But there will be no next time. If there is a next time, not only you, but the whole company will be fired. You should know who I set up that entertainment company for. Amy was startled and remembered that Tang Zheng's original intention was to protect Linger. Otherwise, there was no need to set up this entertainment company. Later the company developed very smoothly, and it signed a lot of artists. It was on the right track. But she didn't expect that Tang Zheng's thoughts were still the same. No matter how much profit this company could bring to him, the ultimate goal was still to protect Linger and make her happy. Everything else was secondary. The core of the whole company was Linger. If something happened to her, then there was no need for this company to exist. Amy understood and couldn't help but have mixed feelings. Chapter 837. Amy was reprimanded, but she had no complaints. She recognized the reality and walked out with a gloomy face. She thought that if the cooperation failed, she would just leave Dianan. Only Tang Zheng, Linger, and the Empyrean Fairy were left in the suite. The two women stared at each other. You are a demon, the Empyrean Fairy said in a shocking voice. It was not a question, but a statement. Linger was transformed from ginseng, so she was naturally a demon. However, she was simple and honest, which was different from ordinary demons. For example, most of the demons in the 100,000 Mountains were cruel and violent. Linger's eyelids twitched. She was very surprised. How did you know? She subconsciously looked at Tang Zheng, thinking that he had told her. Tang Zheng was also surprised. With his strength, he could not see through Linger's real identity. The Empyrean Fairy was indeed not simple. She could see through her at a glance. Tang Zheng shook his head slightly. Linger realized that she had guessed wrong. She was shocked and stared at the Empyrean Fairy. Who are you? This was the first time that Linger's real identity had been seen through. How could she not be shocked? Linger, don't be nervous. She is a friend. She is already in the apotheosis realm. That's why she is so powerful. She also has a famous name, the Empyrean Fairy. It's good that you know it, too. Don't tell others. Tang Zheng comforted. Since the Empyrean Fairy had seen through Linger's real identity, Tang Zheng did not hide the Empyrean Fairy's real identity from Linger. Empyrean Fairy? Linger opened her eyes suspiciously. She tilted her head and thought for a while. She was still at a loss. Obviously, she did not know this name. What is your real identity? The Empyrean Fairy asked. Although she could tell that Linger was a demon, she could not see through her true form. Linger was transformed from a 300-year-old ginseng. I met her by chance, Tang Zheng said honestly. So it's a small ginseng. The Empyrean fairy suddenly realized. Linger pouted and retorted, I'm not a little ginseng. Linger has already grown up. Tang Zheng couldn't help but laugh. He patted Linger's head and comforted her. That's right. Linger has already grown up. We're all together now, so don't be so conflicted. Be happy. Master, what are you doing in Dianan this time? Tang Zheng hesitated for a moment and said, Something might have happened in the Grand Myriad Mountains. I want to go in and find out. Linger's eyes lit up and she eagerly said, Master, I want to go too. You want to go too? Tang Zheng was slightly startled. No, the Grand Myriad Mountains is too dangerous. You can't go. Although Linger was a demon, her cultivation was not high. Linger pouted and said with grievance, Master, the Grand Myriad Mountains is in Dianan. It's not easy to meet them this time. It shows that this is fate. Just let me go. Besides, the tourism ambassador's job is almost done. I just happen to have time. Aren't you very busy? Linger stuck out her tongue. I'm just taking a break from being busy. Master, Linger hasn't gone out to play for a long time. Besides, aren't there many demons in the Grand Myriad Mountains? Linger has never met a demon since she grew up. Seeing her delicate and pitiful appearance, Tang Zheng couldn't bear it. Linger hugged his arm and kept shaking it. His arm rubbed against her chest and waves of softness assaulted him. Tang Zheng's head shook and he subconsciously looked down. He actually found that her chest was quite large. Linger had really grown up. Okay, I promise you. But you have to be obedient. Otherwise, I won't take you. Tang Zheng said seriously with a straight face. He and Linger had been separated for a long time. He could take advantage of this opportunity to stay together for a while. If they really encountered too much danger, he could put Linger into Sumera World and there shouldn't be any problems. Linger was like a fairy. She happily jumped up and stood on her tiptoes. With a smack, she kissed Tang Zheng's face. Tang Zheng suddenly froze and was incomparably embarrassed. Master, did Linger make you unhappy? Seeing him like this, Linger asked helplessly. In the future, you are not allowed to randomly kiss people. Linger happily said, Linger will not randomly kiss people. Linger is not a bad girl. Linger will only kiss Master. Her temperament was similar to that of a child. Tang Zheng was secretly ashamed. His thoughts were not pure and he thought too much. The Empyrean fairy stared at the two people. Especially Linger's words and actions, she finally believed that this little demon was not like other demons. Then when are we leaving? Linger impatiently asked. Tang Zheng looked out the window and found that it was already late. He said, You must be tired. Let's rest for the night and leave early tomorrow morning. Okay. Master, Linger will sleep with you tonight. In the past, when Master slept on the bed, Linger would watch Master sleep from the balcony. I really miss that time. Tang Zheng never thought that Linger could transform into a human. Therefore, during that time, he kept her on the balcony and accompanied her day and night. Now that he heard her say this, he could not help but feel embarrassed. He scratched Linger's straight nose and said, You are a girl. You can't sleep with a man. Do you remember? But you are Master. Linger pouted and said with grievance, I am also a man. Moreover, I told you before that you should call me Big Brother. I am your big brother. Don't call me Master. Linger will call you Big Brother when there are many people. When there are no outsiders, Linger still likes to call you Master. Master sounds better. Linger looked at him with her big black eyes and cutely said. Tang Zheng shook his head and sighed. There was nothing he could do. Although she was in the entertainment industry, she was still under Tang Zheng's protection. Therefore, she was not contaminated by the evil of the entertainment industry. Her most pure nature was still preserved. It was like a piece of white paper that was just casually drawn with a few lines. Because Linger's identity was special, it was not suitable for her to eat in the restaurant to avoid being surrounded. Therefore, the food was directly sent to the room. The other staff members went to eat in the restaurant. Suddenly, only the three of them were left in the room. Bang, bang, bang. A series of rapid banging on the door sounded. The door creaked as if it was about to fall apart. Tang Zheng frowned and said, You guys continue eating. I will go take a look. Hearing that the other party was done, Tang Zheng walked to the door and opened it. Arrest him. As soon as the door opened, a group of fierce-looking people rushed in. Tang Zheng was the first to bear the brunt. He saw a pair of handcuffs snap and cuff his hands. He was slightly startled. The person who came was actually a policeman. His hands were not bad. He actually handcuffed Tang Zheng as soon as he made a move. Get down and behave. The policeman kicked and directly greeted Tang Zheng's stomach. Tang Zheng finally woke up as if he had just woken up from a dream. He pulled his hands outwards and with a gotcha sound, the handcuffs broke into pieces and fell to the ground. The policeman who kicked him flew backwards and crashed into his colleague, crying out in pain. The others could not help but be stunned. You were sent by Long Tengfei? Tang Zheng immediately reacted. In Dianan, the only person who dared to cause trouble for them so recklessly was probably that Long Tengfei. Hearing this, the policeman did not stop. Instead, he roared even more fiercely. You dare to offend Director Long? Don't you know that Director Long is a member of the Long family in Dianan? You dare to be arrogant in Dianan. Why don't you ask around? So what if you're a star? You still have to obediently listen to Director Long. It turns out that the pighead is really a member of the Long family in Dianan. Humph, except for Sister Mu and Nana, who are the other people in the Long family. Long Xianyuan has no idea how to manage his family and bring disaster to his neighbors. This Long family is jackals of the same tribe as the Song family. Seeing Tang Zheng muttering to himself, he did not hear clearly what he was saying. The police became more and more arrogant, thinking that with the support of the Long family, it would be easy to deal with a few outsiders. However, the young man in front of him was a tough guy. He actually had a few skills, but no matter how powerful he was, could he be more powerful than a gun? So several people pulled out their guns and pointed at Tang Zheng. They shouted angrily, "Don't move or your head will explode." Linger and the Empyrean fairy were sitting in the room and eating. Seeing this scene, they were indifferent and still ate unhurriedly. In fact, Linger wanted to help, but was stopped by the Empyrean fairy with her eyes. If they were to take action for such a small disturbance, they would look down on Tang Zheng too much. But AI Me walked out of the elevator with a group of staff and happened to see this scene. Many people were scared out of their wits. Many smart people have already thought that this must be the result of angering Long Tengfei. Could it be that they couldn't even leave the boundary of Dianan? It actually came to the point of using guns. Although AI Me knew that Tang Zheng was the champion of the National Martial Arts Conference, seeing him being pointed at by a gun at close range, her heart still trembled. She quickly greeted him and said, "What are you doing? We are guests of the Dianan government. You treat us like this, we want to complain and protest." The police looked at AI Me with disdain and said, "If you dare to offend Master Long, it's useless even if you complain and protest to the capital. Brat, I'm telling you, obediently surrender, or else you'll have to suffer." Tang Zheng looked over the heads of the crowd, towards the direction of the stairs, and said, "Tell that fat pig to get out. Is it fun to sneak behind and watch the show? The Long family is going downhill more and more. Without Long Tingyu, the others are not willing to fall behind and do such a thing. Brat, I'm going to kill you." Long Tengfei heard and rushed out, followed by a few followers. These people were much more powerful than the police. They were actually martial artists, and there were even pre-celestial stage martial artists among them. Tang Zheng sneered, "What a big show. If it was an ordinary person, they would have been taken care of by the people brought by Long Tengfei." Unfortunately, he had met him. This kind of person had already harmed countless people. Moreover, if he hadn't met him, who knew how many people he would have harmed in the future? If this kind of person was left behind, it would be a disaster. If it wasn't for the fact that he didn't know what was good for him and kept forcing him, Tang Zheng might have let him go for Nanan's sake. He could only blame the other party for being reckless. Chapter 838. Hearing Long Tengfei's angry roar, many people were so scared that they kept quiet out of fear. Especially when they saw the black muzzle of the gun, their hearts trembled and their bodies went weak. Even AI Me was at a loss of what to do. Although Tang Zheng's skills were extraordinary, was he a match for guns? Tang Zheng quickly gave the answer. The guns flew into his hands on full auto, and the police opened their mouths so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in them. Tang Zheng rubbed his hands together, and all the guns were kneaded together in a strange shape, turning into a big iron ball. Bang! The sound of the metal ball landing on the ground was like a clap of thunder exploding in everyone's mind. Was this still the power of a human? All the policemen's faces had turned ashen, and they were scared out of their wits. When Tang Zheng's eyes swept over them, they were scared out of their wits. Some of them even fell on their butts. Long Tingfei was also shocked. Although he was from the side branch of the Long family and had the opportunity to cultivate martial arts since he was young, he was lazy by nature. How could he be willing to suffer such hardships? Therefore, he didn't even know any martial arts. However, this did not hinder his knowledge. He was born in the Long family, so he naturally knew the strength of the warriors better than anyone else. When he saw Tang Zheng reveal this move, his expression changed greatly, and he said while trembling with fear, "You are martial artist?" Tang Zheng coldly snorted and could not be bothered with him. He grabbed with his hand and used the heaven-swallowing technique. Long Tingfei involuntarily flew towards Tang Zheng and landed in Tang Zheng's palm. Ah! Long Tingfei's blood-curdling screams were deafening. "This pig is so annoying. It's disturbing my rest." Tang Zheng scolded impatiently. He tapped on Long Tingfei's body, and he couldn't move at all. He could only stare at Tang Zheng in panic. When the others saw this strange scene, even the pre-celestial martial artists didn't have time to make a move before Long Tingfei was controlled. Everyone was shocked. Not only were they shocked by Tang Zheng's audacity, they were even more shocked by his strength. The few warriors looked at each other. They knew that if they did not do anything, they would not be able to report back. Thus they all braced themselves and attacked Tang Zheng, shouting, "Put him down!" Tang Zheng glanced at the crowd indifferently. With a flick of his finger, a gust of wind blew, and the few people's bodies suddenly stiffened. They all fell to the ground, unable to move even a single step forward. They thought that even if of Tang Zheng's skills, they would still have the strength to fight with so many of their own. However, things were contrary to their wishes. Of a mantis a chariot. Tang Zheng did not kill them. He only temporarily made them lose their fighting strength. He coldly glanced at them and said, "Go back and tell Long Xianyuan that the Dianan Long family has not taught their people well and allowed their people to run amok. I will clean up the house for him. If there is anything, feel free to find me." Tang Zheng was resolute and decisive, causing everyone's expression to change greatly. In the land of Dianan, he dared to directly challenge Long Xianyuan. Could it be that he was stupid? Otherwise, how could a normal person have such ambition and courage? Tang Zheng did not care about their thoughts, and continued to speak, "I will not change my name, and will not change my surname. Just tell Long Xianyuan that Tang Zheng helped him clean up the sect." With that, with a crisp crack, Long Tingfei's neck was broken, and he fell to the ground like a dead pig. Screams rose and fell, not only from the martial artists, but also from the police, as well as me and the others. To personally kill someone in front of the police, this was definitely a huge courage. Could it be that he was not afraid of the police? Of course, Tang Zheng was not afraid. Just now, he had used the soul-searching technique to discover Long Tingyu's misdeeds. This person was lecherous and looked like a fat pig. Relying on the power in his hands, not only did he run amok in the unit, no one dared to provoke him. He even insulted his own colleagues. In the end, his colleague's husband came to him and even reported him to the disciplinary department. However, he used his own power to directly and quietly kill this couple, and the report also came to nothing. In addition, he used various methods to forcefully occupy many women. In short, his crimes were too numerous to be recorded, and even death could not wipe out his crimes. How could Tang Zheng let him go? If he let him go, with his identity and methods, he would not be punished at all. Then today, he would be a judge and directly give him the punishment he deserved. Mi's colleague stared at Tang Zheng in horror, trembling in fear. Thinking back to how he had complained about Tang Zheng behind his back and said bad things about him, he couldn't help but feel a chill on his neck. Would he also be killed by him? As for those martial artists, after screaming, they could not hide the panic on their faces. This was a fear that was engraved in their bones. This was because the name Tang Zheng was like thunder to them. It was like a nightmare that had been lingering in their hearts for countless days. If Long Tingfei had asked for Tang Zheng's name from the beginning, when he heard these two words, he might not have been so reckless and arrogant. This was because everyone in the Long family knew that Long Tingyu's death was related to Tang Zheng. Even the Song and Chu families that had just been destroyed in the capital were related to him. This person was too powerful. With the current strength of the Long family, wanting to contend against him was no different from an egg striking a stone. Therefore, even though Long Xianyuan knew that his son's death was related to Tang Zheng, he could do nothing about it. Take this dead pig and scram. Tang Zheng berated. As if they had been pardoned, these martial artists carried Long Tingfei's corpse and disappeared along the stairs without looking back. They didn't even take the elevator. Tang Zheng's gaze turned and landed on the policeman. Immediately, they felt as if they had gone from the dog days of June to the dead of winter, and their entire bodies were emitting cold air. You are the people's police. You should protect the people, not help the tyrant and protect these nobles. Go, take care of yourself. After Tang Zheng reprimanded them, these people did not dare to refute. They watched Tang Zheng's actions with their own eyes. They had already realized that this youth in front of them was an existence even more powerful than the Long family, and was someone they did not dare to provoke. Thus, he quickly got up and left dejectedly. As for Ai Mi and the others, they looked at Tang Zheng from afar. They did not dare to approach him, nor did they dare to leave. Some of the timid girls were already sitting on the ground in fear. Their expressions were even uglier than crying. Tang Zheng turned his head to look. He knew that this incident had shocked them quite a bit. However, they all often followed Ling Er's team. Sometimes, it was necessary to frighten them and let them understand some things. It's okay. You all go back and rest. I'll give you all a holiday for the next few days. You can play in Dianan or go to other places to play. Tang Zheng said lightly. Holiday? Everyone was confused. How can you say that you can take a holiday? But no one dared to refute. In the end, it was Ai Mi who resisted the fear in her heart and nodded. Yes, you all should also rest early. Seeing Tang Zheng close the door, everyone immediately began to talk about it. Sister Ai Mi, who is this person? What is his relationship with Ling Er? That's right, what qualifications does he have to give us a holiday? This time, things have become so big and people have died. Let's hurry up and report to the company. Otherwise, there will be a big mess. These people who mingled in the entertainment industry could be considered experienced and knowledgeable people, but everything that happened tonight still taught them an important lesson. Ai Mi recovered her spirit and sternly scolded, "Don't cause trouble. If he says it's a holiday, then it's a holiday." Why? Because he is the boss. Ai Mi finally couldn't help but reveal Tang Zheng's true identity. Otherwise, these people would definitely ask endlessly. Ah, boss? Everyone was shocked. Although there were occasional rumors that the real boss of the company was not Mu Hongyan, but someone else, they didn't expect him to be so young. This was the real overbearing president, decisive and decisive. The few girls who were scared to death just now immediately had stars in their eyes. However, some people were happy while others were sad. When Long Tingfei's body was transported back to the Long family, the huge Long family was shaken. The Long family did not only have Long Xuanyuan's family, but also many side branches. Long Tingfei's death caused all the side branches to gather at the Long family. They were aggressive and wanted Long Xianyuan to come forward and seek justice for Long Tingfei. When Long Xianyuan heard what happened and knew that it was Tang Zheng who did it, his mood instantly fell to the bottom. He was not angry. He had heard a little about Long Tingfei's usual actions, but there were many children of aristocratic families, and there were many good and bad children. Moreover, it was just a side branch child, so he didn't take it to heart. He didn't expect that this time he would kick an iron plate, Tang Zheng. This was the thing that gave him a headache. As for Long Tingfei's death, whether it was early or late, Long Xianyuan didn't care. Long Xianyuan was thinking, was this Tang Zheng deliberately coming to Dianan to stir up trouble for the Long family, or was it really a coincidence? A coincidence? He snorted disdainfully, as he did not believe in coincidences. He believed that everyone's words and actions had a deep meaning and purpose, especially people like Tang Zheng. Moreover, Tang Zheng had just destroyed the Song and Chu families, and was in high spirits. It was not ruled out that he wanted to strike while the iron was hot and clean up the Long family together. After all, both sides had long-cherished wishes. Thinking of this, Long Xianyuan couldn't sit still. Things were different now. And being remembered by Tang Zhang was not a good thing. Seeing a group of people chattering non-stop, wanting him to seek justice, he couldn't help but feel angry. With a bang, his palm slammed on the table, and the sound was like a thunderclap, causing everyone's ears to rumble. Justice? What kind of justice do you want? Don't you know what Ting Fei did on a daily basis? Have you elders ever said a single word about him? Now that he's dead, you want justice? Hearing Long Xuanyuan's question, everyone immediately stopped and looked at him in horror. They didn't know why he was so angry at his own people. Everyone was silent. Long Xuanyuan took a deep breath and said, "You keep saying that you want to take revenge. That Tang Zheng is in the hotel. Do you want to go by yourselves?" Chapter 839. Seeing that no one dared to make a sound, Long Xuanyuan coldly snorted and reprimanded, "You only know how to be arrogant in your own home. The good reputation of the Long family has been ruined by you all. But our Long family can't be bullied like this and just ignore it," someone said faintly. "That's because Long Tingfei hit the muzzle of the gun and gave the other party a chance. Moreover, do you know the purpose of Tang Zheng's visit?" Everyone shook their heads. "Send someone to keep an eye on the hotel. Every move of Tang Zheng must be reported to me. I want to know all their whereabouts in Dianan." Long Xuanyuan pondered for a long time and made a decision. Seeing that Long Xuanyuan hesitated for a long time and actually just bide his time and wait for the changes, many people felt dissatisfied and said, "Patriarch, isn't this too easy for him?" "You think it's too easy for him, right? Then you go find him for revenge, or you can find someone in the Long family who can fight with Tang Zheng." Long Xuanyuan said in a bad mood. Tang Zheng's strength was outstanding. This was already a recognized fact. Although Long Xuanyuan was in the border area, he knew very well that he was not even a match for Tang Zheng. Moreover, he had already fought with Tang Zheng before. At that time, he couldn't do anything to Tang Zheng, let alone now. As soon as these words came out, everyone lowered their heads in shame. Long Xuanyuan's gaze passed through the crowd and floated in the direction of the hotel. He wondered in his heart, "Surnamed Tang, what is your purpose in coming to Dianan?" Tang Zheng didn't know the fear of the Long family, nor did he know how much of a storm Long Tingfei's death had caused in the officialdom of Dianan. Many people who had been bullied by Long Tingfei in the open and in the dark cheered. Long Tingfei finally had his retribution. Of course, more people guessed that the Long family would definitely be angry and perhaps set off a bloody storm. However, what surprised these people was that the Long family actually endured it, as if this matter had never happened at all. This was definitely not the style of the Long family. Tang Zheng was not in the mood to care about these things. Early the next morning, he left the city with the Empyrean Fairy and Nana and went straight to the 100,000 Mountains. Although Ai Me and the others thought that he was taking Linger around without doing anything proper, they didn't dare to refute him. When he stood in front of the 100,000 Mountains again, Tang Zheng had mixed feelings. The 100,000 Mountains were indescribably important to him. If it was not for the 100,000 Mountains, he would not have had that fortuitous encounter, the shaman tribe, Xiaobai, the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrows. Of course, the 100 Faces Star-Lord would not have left the Buzhou Mountain and wreaked havoc in the world. One peck and one drink, whether it was a blessing or a curse, there was no way to truly distinguish between them. Although the 100,000 Mountains were still lush and green, it gave people a feeling that it was more dangerous than before. In the past, the 100,000 Mountains was filled with miasma, swamps, and ferocious beasts. For ordinary people, it was an absolutely dangerous place. But today, although the miasma had mostly disappeared because of the breaking of the restrictions, the demonic beasts had already occupied this pure land, making it even more dangerous. Not only ordinary people, even the army and warriors were unable to survive in this 100,000 Mountains. Linger sniffed slightly and frowned. What a heavy demonic aura! The 100,000 Mountains is filled with demonic beasts, so of course the demonic aura is heavy. Tang Zheng said. Linger curled her lips and said, "There are too many brutal auras in this demonic aura, Linger doesn't like it." Although Linger could be considered a demon, she was transformed from a ginseng and did not like to kill. "When we go in later, follow us. If anything happens, I will protect you," Tang Zheng warned. Linger smiled brightly. Linger will also protect herself. Although Linger has been busy with work these days, She has not relaxed her cultivation. Tang Zhang smiled approvingly and walked into the 100,000 mountains with the two of them. At the same time, Long Xianyuan also received the news and was extremely shocked. Why did these people enter the 100,000 mountains? Moreover, it was not just Tang Zheng. What was the meaning of the other two people going together? Could it be related to the earthquake a while ago? South Yunnan had always been prone to earthquakes, but the Long family was not an ordinary family. How could the news that was used to fool the common people fool the Long family? Long Xianyuan was very clear that the tremor a while ago was not an earthquake, but came from the 100,000 mountains. Something must have happened. However, he was unwilling to take the risk of entering the 100,000 mountains, but the 100,000 mountains was in South Yunnan, his territory. This had always been a rather troublesome problem for him. Now it seemed that something big had happened in the 100,000 mountains, which was why it attracted Tang Zhang to come all the way here. So Tang Zhang did not come here specifically for the Long family? Immediately, Long Xianyuan could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Since the other party was not here for the Long family, then he could not provoke them. As for the death of Long Tingfei, he could only blame himself. Long Xianyuan would not go to war with Tang Zhang for the sake of a mere disciple of a concubine's branch family. But another problem was placed in front of him. Tang Zhang must have a motive for entering the 100,000 mountains. Should he go or not? Go. After hesitating for a long time, he finally made up his mind. The moment Tang Zhang stepped into the 100,000 mountains, he felt that the aura between heaven and earth had changed. It was as if there were countless pairs of eyes staring at them, which made him feel very strange. Empyrean Fairy said indifferently, "There are demon beasts monitoring us." The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up, and he said jokingly, "If they dare to stop us, then they can only blame themselves for being unlucky." Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, a wave of heavy footsteps rang out. A few demon beasts blocked their path, and their eyes bloomed with a fierce light. Tang Zhang coldly glanced at the other party. The strength of these demon beasts was too low. They were simply courting death. He was not going to be polite. Just as he was about to make a move, Xiao Bai, who was on his shoulder, had already made a move first. Whiz! With a flash of white light, it charged into the group of demonic beasts. It didn't even breathe fire. Its little claws slapped the demonic beasts' bodies, causing them to fall to the ground. They were only left with the breath of air, not the breath of air. Linger happily clapped her hands and said excitedly, "Wow, Xiao Bai is so powerful." Xiao Bai was complacent, and directly landed in Linger's arms, and arched into her embrace. Tang Zhang speechlessly rolled his eyes. This little pervert actually knew how to take advantage of her, but Linger was completely unaware. Linger seemed to have a natural closeness with Xiao Bai. Apart from Tang Zhang, Xiao Bai was the closest to her. As for the Empyrean Fairy, Xiao Bai did not dare to act rashly in front of her, and even more so did not dare to jump onto her shoulder or embrace. The Empyrean Fairy looked at Xiao Bai and said, "This little thing is quite powerful." The Empyrean Fairy had also wanted to investigate Xiao Bai's origins, but after a few days of hard work, she gave up because there were no clues. This made Tang Zheng even more astonished. What exactly was Xiao Bai's origins? Even the famous Empyrean Fairy did not know anything about him. The three of them advanced for a while, and encountered a few more demonic beasts. Xiao Bai did the same thing, and eliminated the other party. After repeating this process, they actually encountered a few more waves of demonic beasts, and they gradually went deeper into the heart of the 100,000 mountains. Wait a minute. Suddenly, the Empyrean Fairy called out. Tang Zheng looked at her suspiciously and asked, "What's wrong? Didn't you notice another problem?" The Empyrean Fairy asked in a deep voice. Tang Zheng shook his head blankly. The Empyrean Fairy said, "Since you keep saying that the 100,000 mountains is an absolutely dangerous place where demonic beasts run rampant, what kind of demonic beasts have we encountered along the way? How strong are they?" Tang Zheng immediately understood and suddenly said, "You're saying that the strength of those demonic beasts is too weak, and completely different from my judgment." Yes, if just these demonic beasts were enough to judge the 100,000 mountains as a dangerous place, then that would be too ridiculous. Even if a slightly stronger martial artist were to face those demonic beasts, they would not be too passive and would not suffer too much. The Empyrean Fairy solemnly said. Tang Zheng's heart thumped, and he secretly said, "That's right." Su Yingtian once said that the National Security Bureau and the Dragon Group had sent people into the 100,000 Mountains to investigate, but they did not return. Not long after they entered, they met with misfortune. The people of these two organizations were naturally not ordinary people, and they were completely annihilated as soon as they entered the 100,000 Mountains. This showed that even the demonic beasts in the periphery were very strong. But the demonic beasts they encountered before could not be considered strong, and it was impossible for them to completely annihilate the people of the National Security Bureau or the Dragon Group. What did this mean? It meant that there was a world of difference between the defensive power of the demonic beasts in the past and now. Where did those powerful demonic beasts that were originally guarding the periphery of the 100,000 Mountains go? Could this be related to the earthquake? Tang Zheng shook his head, unable to guess the reason. No matter what happens here, we have to have a goal. We can't wander around the 100,000 Mountains blindly. After all, this is the 100,000 Mountains, and the area is vast. If we don't have a goal, it would simply be a waste of time. The Empyrean Fairy reminded. Tang Zheng muttered to himself for a moment, then said, "Let's go to the prehistoric Heavenly Tomb." The prehistoric Heavenly Tomb was the core area of the 100,000 Mountains. Not only were there countless mysterious tombs, there was also the Buzhou Mountain. This became Tang Zheng's first choice of destination. If anything were to happen in the 100,000 Mountains, the prehistoric Heavenly Tomb would be the most likely place. The Empyrean Fairy didn't know what was inside the 100,000 Mountains, so she could only agree. Although the Empyrean Fairy was also someone from thousands of years ago, the 100,000 Mountains had been sealed for who knows how many years. Even she did not know what was inside, and had never stepped into this place before. Therefore, she could only accept Tang Zheng's suggestion and quickly rush to the prehistoric Heavenly Tomb with him. There were no outsiders here, so their speed was extremely fast. Sometimes they would even walk on air, looking extremely carefree. They only used half a day to arrive in front of the prehistoric Heavenly Tomb. The gigantic black stone tablet stood in front of them, still giving off a strong sense of shock. "This stone tablet is poisonous. Don't touch it," Tang Zheng reminded. Chapter 840. Tang Zheng was someone who had been to the ghost realm, so of course he was not unfamiliar with this so-called death aura. Speaking of it, it was yin qi, causing people to have a strong sense of unease. The current yin qi was even stronger than before, no different from the ghost realm. The three of them carefully walked in. There were no longer any demonic beasts coming to stop them. Looking around, it was quiet, deathly silent. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, a loud sound came from afar. The three of them were startled and subconsciously stopped in their tracks. Looking up, they saw black clouds pressing down on them. The sky was extremely low, as if they could reach it with their hands, giving off a very oppressive feeling. Their pupils constricted, and they couldn't help but cry out in alarm. "Giant!" The sound of rapid breathing rang out in the deathly silent tomb. It was exceptionally ear-piercing, causing one's nerves to involuntarily tense up. In the distance, a giant that towered into the clouds stood between heaven and earth. This person was hundreds of meters tall, equivalent to a small mountain. Although Tang Zheng had seen the size of the four symbols venerable before, he was still shocked by this giant. This giant was several times taller than the four symbols venerable. Furthermore, it was not a stone statue, but a living person. Tang Zheng had never thought that there would be giants in this world. Furthermore, infinity was so huge that it made ordinary humans feel insignificant. The 9 Heavens Maiden's frown deepened. She murmured to herself, "It is said that the giant tribe did exist in ancient times. However, the giant tribe was small in number. Later on, they gradually disappeared and went extinct. Why is there a giant in this prehistoric Heavenly Tomb? Giant race?" Tang Zheng was shocked. "Is there really a giant race in history?" Empyrean Fairy nodded. "That is indeed the case, but the giant race has long been exterminated." They were all puzzled. Furthermore, Tang Zheng had come to the prehistoric Heavenly Tomb twice, but he had never encountered a giant. Why would there be a giant this time? Could it be that the 100 Transformations Star-Lord was behind this again? Tang Zheng was furious. Just how many more tricks did this 100 Transformations Star-Lord have up his sleeves? Roar! The giant roared towards the sky, the sound waves spreading in all directions. The black clouds in the sky were blown apart, but they quickly gathered together. Boom! The giant raised his foot and placed it on the ground. The ground trembled as if there was an earthquake. However, it was clear that this tremor was completely different from the earthquake that was rumored in the outside world. This tremor was far less intense than that one, and it could only be felt on the ground nearby. It definitely wouldn't spread beyond the 100,000 mountains. The giant walked deeper into the desolate heavenly tomb with large strides. The three of them immediately looked in that direction. However, the sky was dark and they couldn't see clearly. But Tang Zheng knew that it was the direction of Mount Buzhou. "Let's follow them," Tang Zheng hurriedly said, and then chased after him. The Empyrean fairy opened her eyes wide in curiosity when she saw the numerous tombstones in front of her. However, she soon discovered something strange and cried out, "These tombstones have all been opened." All of Tang Zheng's attention was on the giant. When he heard this, he quickly looked over. Sure enough, these tombs were all broken open, leaving behind large pits, but there was nothing in the tombs. Tang Zheng suddenly remembered the tomb of the Beast King. The Beast King was almost resurrected, and if not for Xiao Bai's help, the Beast King would have really been resurrected. These tombs were empty. Could it be that the people who were buried here had also been resurrected? With that thought, Tang Zheng's entire body turned cold, and his heartstrings trembled. If that was really the case, then it would be too terrifying. The people buried in this desolate heavenly tomb were all powerful figures from the ancient era. If they were to revive, then the balance of power in this world would be completely broken. Ordinary people would not be able to resist these experts at all. They would only be sending themselves to their deaths. It can't be. What ability does the 100 Transformations Star-Lord have to revive the dead? This is too heaven-defying. It's impossible for him to do it. Tang Zheng kept comforting himself. Empyrean Fairy looked at the tomb and muttered to herself. The three of them continued to chase after the giant and gradually walked out of the tomb. Tang Zheng's heart started to beat faster than usual. In this desolate heavenly tomb, he had experienced a lot and gained a lot. Among them, the most important thing was Qi Yu's heart. He subconsciously touched his chest. Qi Yu's heart was inside and had already become a part of his body. Speaking of which, Qi Yu's heart had helped him many times. The thing that left the deepest impression on him was that time in the Sky Cavern. He had subdued the Sword Soul and repelled the Sword God, resolving a huge crisis for him. From then on, Qi Yu's heart seemed to have completely calmed down. There was no reaction at all, and Tang Zheng had almost forgotten about it. But after coming here, these memories surged up like a tidal wave, causing him to sigh with emotion. A moment later, they walked out of the tomb and got closer and closer to the giant. However, the giant did not seem to notice them and continued to walk forward. Hua hua hua. The rumbling sound of flowing water came from the front. From afar, a waterfall could be seen falling from the sky, flowing down 3,000 feet. The source of the waterfall seemed to be in the sky, hidden behind the clouds. Tang Zheng dared to assert that the so-called famous waterfall attractions in the world were far less shocking than this waterfall. The waterfall was not wide, but the water that flowed down had a strong impact. It did not fall to the ground, but instead fell into a huge canyon. The last time Tang Zheng went to the Buzhou mountain, he did not pass by this place, so he did not know that there was such a place. Pay attention to that canyon. Empyrean Fairy's expression turned cold as she reminded him. Tang Zheng was shocked. He immediately looked over, and saw that the canyon was filled with a black fog, which enveloped the top of the canyon. The river water directly passed through the black qi and fell into the canyon. Tang Zheng was not unfamiliar with the black qi. It was yin qi, and the yin qi here was actually even stronger than the ghost realm. This made Tang Zheng puzzled. What was the bottom of the canyon? Why was there such a strong yin qi gathered? If an ordinary person breathed in a little of this yin qi, they would have horrible illusions and be scared to death. The giant stopped and stood at the edge of the cliff. He lowered his head and let out a shocking roar toward the bottom of the canyon. Roar! Like a sudden clap of thunder, the mist-like yin energy was immediately blown away. What is he doing? Tang Zheng asked in confusion. Empyrean Fairy listened carefully and suddenly shouted, "There is movement below the canyon." Movement? Could it be something else? Tang Zheng was shocked. There was no lack of surprises today. This canyon is long enough. Let's stay away from the giant and go to the edge of the canyon to see what is going on below. This was exactly what Empyrean Fairy wanted, so the three of them carefully avoided the giant and walked toward the canyon. Ling Er's expression had become extremely unnatural. This was the first time she had encountered such a dangerous and exciting thing since she was a child. She could not help but be a little flustered. Tang Zheng noticed her strangeness and quickly held her hand and comforted her. Ling Er, don't be afraid, I am here. Ling Er opened her eyes wide and smiled sweetly. She nodded and said, "And Ling Er will listen to Master. With Master here, Ling Er is not afraid." The three of them finally quietly came to the edge of the canyon and looked down. The light was very dim, but they could vaguely see something climbing up the cliff. Something is climbing up. The three of them looked at each other and saw the horror in each other's eyes. What kind of thing would climb out of this gloomy canyon? They were afraid that it was not something good. Tang Zheng quickly circulated his true qi, and his eyes lit up. His vision was finally better, and he could finally distinguish what those things were. Demonic beasts. Those are actually demonic beasts. Tang Zheng exclaimed in a low voice. These demonic beasts were obviously more powerful than the ones they had encountered before, and not just by a little bit. Could it be that all the powerful demonic beasts in the 100,000 mountains had run to this canyon? This was probably the case. But why did the demonic beasts go to the canyon? This should be related to the 100 Faces Star Lord. They had been in the 100,000 mountains for a while, but they had not seen any trace of the 100 Faces Star Lord. Where was he? In the Buzhou Mountains? Or in this canyon? They are indeed demonic beasts, but look, some demonic beasts have fallen from the cliff again. Could it be that there is something stopping them from climbing up? Are you saying that there is something in this canyon that is fighting against the demonic beasts? Tang Zheng was shocked. In this bottomless canyon, there was not a trace of sunlight for many years. What kind of living creature could there be? What kind of living creature could endure this hellish torment? Let's get closer. The Empyrean Fairy suggested. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment and agreed. Although it was risky this time, they had to get to the bottom of this. Otherwise, there would be endless trouble. The three of them quietly moved in the direction of the giant, which was closer to the location of the demonic beasts. They stopped again and found a new situation. The demonic beasts were actually tied with iron chains. The iron chains extended along the cliff into the canyon and disappeared into the darkness. The iron chains were straight. Obviously, there was a strong force on the other end. The demonic beasts crawled up with great difficulty, as if they were resisting the force on the other end of the iron chains. What is it? They could already be sure that there was something on the other end of the iron chains, but they were not sure what it was. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Demonic beasts constantly flew from the cliff and were pulled down into the canyon abyss. However, the other demonic beasts continued to persevere and climb up bit by bit. The giant stared at all this with a pair of huge eyes. Suddenly, he found that more and more demonic beasts were falling down. He roared angrily and grabbed the waterfall with his big hand. It was as if he had grabbed the waterfall in the air. A huge water chain was waved in his hand and pulled towards the depths of the canyon. Boom! With a loud sound, Yin Qi soared into the sky from the canyon. The water chain immediately shattered and turned into droplets of water. Chapter 841. At the bottom of the canyon, in the darkness, a huge object gradually emerged from the strong Yin Qi. Tang Zheng and the other two stared at it without blinking. Bronze coffin. What a big bronze coffin. Tang Zheng was shocked and couldn't help but exclaim. The bronze coffin was about 100 meters long and dozens of meters wide, almost the same size as the huge canyon. The bronze coffin was tied with pitch-black iron chains, and the other end was tied to the demonic beasts. It turned out that so many demonic beasts were tied to the chains to drag the bronze coffin out of the canyon. What was in the bronze coffin? A dead person? Was there a need for such a big coffin? One had to know that even the coffin of the first Emperor Qin Shi Huang was mediocre and could not be compared to this thing in front of him. Who was the person in the coffin? Tang Zheng couldn't imagine it. As for the purpose of the demonic beasts dragging the bronze coffin, he couldn't guess. Roar! Roar! Suddenly, a strange roar sounded from the abyss of the canyon. A strong Yin Qi blew away the tornado and directly wrapped around the bronze coffin. The demonic beasts were stunned and had to stop. Tang Zhang could clearly see that the land of darkness was emitting waves of black qi that soared into the sky. At the same time, another white light also soared into the sky. White bones. Taking a closer look, the white light turned out to be white bones, like the bones left behind after a rotten corpse. These bones did not fall apart. Instead, they gathered together, as if they were a single person. They trembled with the black light without fear. Tang Zhang was suddenly enlightened, and suddenly remembered the empty graves he saw earlier. Could it be that these white bones crawled out from those graves? To be able to make the white bones move like a person, it was enough to show that the spell was strange and powerful. Perhaps all of this was related to the 100 Faces Star Lord. Tang Zhang looked around, trying to find the traces of the 100 Faces Star Lord, but in the end, he found that it was in vain. Why was the 100 Faces Star Lord absent from such an important scene? He liked to play, so he shouldn't miss this scene. Those black lights did not have a concrete shape at all. They transformed into all kinds of strange shapes and clashed with the piles of white bones. Once the white bone was wrapped in the black light, it would not take long for the bone to turn black and fall apart. This meant that the black gas was extremely powerful. He didn't know what it was. The black light dragged white bones, and the demonic beast immediately regained its ability to move, dragging the coffin and climbing up. The giant suddenly roared and grabbed the waterfall that seemed to be falling from the sky. A white water chain was formed again and was thrown into the canyon. Boom! The water chains shattered the black gas. The demonic beasts were overjoyed. Taking advantage of this gap, they quickly climbed up. Some demonic beasts finally climbed out of the canyon. These demonic beasts were obviously more vigilant than the giants. When the demonic beasts climbed up, they immediately noticed Tang Zhang and the others. Roar! The demonic beast roared angrily. The giant looked down upon them, and its huge eyes immediately locked onto the three of them. Whoosh! The water chains danced in the air and flew out of the canyon, directly attacking Tang Zhang and the others. Tang Zhang did not dare to wait for death. He hurriedly took out his War Soul sword. The bright sword light collided with the water chains. The water chains exploded, and Tang Zhang flipped several times in the air before he could stabilize his body. Tang Zhang was shocked. He was the only one who knew the power of this attack. This seemingly casual attack was definitely the killing power of a golden elixir realm cultivator. If he hadn't been careless, he would have suffered a great loss. Seeing that Tang Zhang was safe and sound, the giant raised its foot and stomped over. Tang Zhang somersaulted in the air and dodged. The place where the giant foot landed, rocks flew and dust rose, creating a large crater. Tang Zhang knew the killing power of this kind of big guy. The Four Symbols Venerable was a big guy. In actual combat, they often had the upper hand by virtue of their size. Unfortunately, the Four Symbols Venerable was damaged and could no longer be used. Tang Zhang tried his best, but he couldn't repair the Four Symbols Venerable. Since the first attack did not hit, the giant continued to attack Tang Zhang. Tang Zhang relied on his nimble life to shuttle back and forth, dodging the attacks by a hair's breadth each time. Without the giant holding them back, the situation in the canyon changed. The strange black gas gradually gained the upper hand. More and more white bones were dyed black and turned into bone dust. The demonic beast roared again and again. It tried to pull the bronze coffin up, but it also failed. The two sides were in a stalemate. Loud sounds came from the bottom of the canyon. The mountain shook and huge rocks fell from both sides of the canyon. Giant, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and pull the bronze coffin up. An angry roar came from the bottom of the canyon. Tang Zhang was stunned. This voice was all too familiar. It was the 100 Faces Star Lord. It turned out that the 100 Faces Star Lord had gone down to the bottom of the canyon. Hearing the 100 Faces Star Lord's voice, Tang Zhang didn't hesitate. No matter what was in the bronze coffin, since the 100 Faces Star Lord wanted to pull it out, he had to stop him. Fu Yao! Stop them! Tang Zhang shouted. Although the mysterious Maiden of the Nine Heavens was also very curious about what was inside the bronze coffin and even wanted to find out, after hearing Tang Zhang's words, she forcefully suppressed the curiosity in her heart. Her figure flashed and she kicked the demonic beasts that were climbing up the cliff. These demonic beasts were resisting the huge force coming from the other side. They couldn't resist the Empyrean fairy at all. They were fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. In fact, even if they didn't divert their attention, they wouldn't be a match for the Empyrean fairy. As for Ling Er, although she was still afraid, when she saw Tang Zheng and the Empyrean fairy joining the battle, she didn't want to fall behind. She rushed towards the demonic beasts. Fortunately, these demonic beasts were restrained by the bronze coffin. Otherwise, Ling Er would be at a great disadvantage. Ling Er didn't have any Dharma treasures. Her tender fists were also very powerful. She forced a few demonic beasts down the cliff. Hearing the 100 Faces Star-Lord's urging, the giant's attack power increased sharply. Tang Zheng's situation wasn't optimistic, but the Empyrean fairy finally made her move against the giant. Boom! The giant took a series of punches from the Empyrean fairy and fell straight down the canyon. Tang Zheng was shocked. This was the difference between the Golden Elixir Realm and the Incarnation Realm. It was an insurmountable gap. The giant fell and hit the bronze coffin. The demonic beasts struggling on the cliff were all knocked down the cliff by the impact. Who is it? The 100 Faces Star-Lord roared. Obviously, he also knew that someone was coming. Tang Zheng sneered, but did not reply. He only looked down at the canyon from above. When the giant landed on the bronze coffin, the chains on the bronze coffin were all broken, and the black chi immediately wrapped around the giant. The giant kept roaring and struggling, but the black gas was even more powerful. It firmly entangled the giant, making it impossible for him to get away. The bronze coffin quickly fell to the bottom of the canyon. It was about to disappear into the darkness. Whoosh! A person jumped down from the cliff. Tang Zheng was shocked and shouted, "No!" However, it was too late. He watched as the Empyrean fairy fell into the bronze coffin. From afar, the Empyrean fairy's voice sounded, "I want to see what's inside." Tang Zheng shook his head and sighed helplessly. He was also curious about what was inside the bronze coffin that made the 100 Faces Star-Lord think so. However, when he saw the black gas, he flinched. With his cultivation, he might not be able to unravel this secret. However, when the Empyrean fairy jumped down, he knew that he couldn't stay out of it. He pulled Ling Er and said, "Hold on to me. Don't be afraid." With Master here, Ling Er is not afraid. Ling Er nodded and hugged him meekly. Xiao Bai also lay on Tang Zheng's shoulder. He jumped, and the biting cold wind blew past their ears. The 2 people and 1 beast jumped down the cliff. However, Tang Zheng didn't jump toward the bronze pipe. That was because there was a black gas on it that made him afraid. Before figuring out what the other party was, it was better to be careful. After falling for a while, they were surrounded by darkness. Only the whistling of the wind could be heard. There was no light at all. It was so dark that they couldn't even see their own fingers. Tang Zheng ignited a ball of true fire on his finger and slightly illuminated the surroundings. However, there was still nothing left. There was only darkness, boundless darkness. Suddenly, a loud sound came from below. Then, a ball of light erupted and rushed into the sky. He saw piles of white bones. These bones were turned into fine powder by the light. Tang Zheng lamented in his heart. These experts of a generation couldn't even rest in peace after death. He didn't know what method the 100 Faces Star-Lord had used to summon them and used them. In the end, they were all smashed into pieces. If those experts were in heaven, they would probably hate the 100 Faces Star-Lord to the bone. With the help of this ball of light, Tang Zheng could finally see the bottom of the canyon clearly. The bronze coffin had fallen to the ground. The giant had already stood up, but there were huge black spots on his body. He was still fighting against the black gas, trying to shake it off. However, the black gas was very difficult to deal with and he couldn't do so. As for the Empyrean fairy, she stood in the air and floated above the bronze coffin. She stared at the bronze coffin as if she wanted to see through it. Another scene that attracted Tang Zheng's attention was that of 2 people. The 100 Faces Star-Lord was fighting someone. This person was very powerful and was actually on par with the 100 Faces Star-Lord. Furthermore, his body was covered in a black gas. His face was blurry and not easy to recognize. However, Tang Zheng only looked for a while and recognized that this person was actually Tian Chanzi. Tang Zheng's eyes immediately widened. How could it be Tian Chanzi? How could his cultivation be compared to the 100 Faces Star-Lord? Furthermore, the spells and divine skills Tian Chanzi used were completely different. They were definitely not heaven-flying immortal or similar methods. Tang Zheng was very unfamiliar with them. However, although the face was blurry, Tang Zheng would never mistake it. He was Tian Chanzi. However, his strength had become exceptionally strong. Tang Zheng was very unfamiliar with him. Chapter 842. Tang Zheng felt that it was unimaginable, as if he was dreaming. Could it be that Tian Chanzi had hidden his strength before, and this was the real him? No way. If he had been so powerful from the start, he would not have been controlled by 100-change Star-Lord in Mount Buzhou, and almost lost his life. Tian Chanzi had disappeared for so long. Could it be that some fortuitous encounter had happened to him during this period of time, and that was why his strength had increased by leaps and bounds? But this was too exaggerated. There was a certain limit to the increase of one's cultivation, and it was impossible to increase by too much without a limit. There must be a demon behind this abnormality. Tang Zheng felt that something unknown must have happened during this period of time. Empyrean Fairy also saw Tian Chanzi, and frowned suspiciously. She had fought with Tian Chanzi before, and was very clear about his strength. Looking at his current strength, her heart was also stirred up, and she muttered to herself. Tian Chanzi did not say a word, and ignored Tang Zheng as if he was a stranger. In his eyes, there was only 100-change Star-Lord, and each of his moves was incomparably fierce. The bottom of the canyon was turned upside down, rocks swirled in the air, and Yin Qi soared to the sky. The ground was already covered with the corpses of demonic beasts, and there were also piles of white bones. It was like hell on earth, and coupled with the environment where the Yin Qi roared, it was really frightening. Integral Ling could not help but tremble and said, "Master, what's wrong with him? Why does Ling feel that I don't recognize him?" Ling perception was sharp, and her temperament was simple, so she made the most direct judgment. Tang Zheng shivered, and thought that Ling was right. However, the most important thing now was not to find out what had happened to Tian Chanzi, but to deal with 100-change Star-Lord. 100-change Star-Lord also saw Tang Zheng, and his pupils shrank and said, "So it's you. The demon race's attack in the sea must have something to do with you, right?" Seeing that 100-change Star-Lord recognized him, Tang Zheng nodded naturally, and said, "So what? 100-change Star-Lord, you don't care about the lives of the people in this world, and you actually activated the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array without permission, and led the demon race back. You almost caused a great disaster, and harmed the world. You are too ruthless." 100-change Star-Lord heard this, and laughed crazily, and said, "Haha, too ruthless? So what if those people died? Moreover, the people I killed when I activated the Mountain and River Blood Sacrifice Array were from the Japanese nation. A few decades ago, the Japanese nation invaded Wuxia. Don't tell me you still think it's a pity that their people died? 100-change Star-Lord, and the people of Wuxia, and Wuxia, and the Xiaxias. Wuxia. 100-change Star-Lord didn't care, and said, "What do the lives of mortals have to do with me?" Tang Zheng was furious. 100-change Star-Lord was a madman. No wonder he broke Mount Buzhou. In his eyes, there were no rules. Except for himself, other people's lives were like grass. This kind of person was an absolute scourge in the world. He didn't know why he didn't kill him directly back then, but imprisoned him. It's a pity that I didn't bring back too many demons this time, and most of them were intercepted and destroyed by you. But those demons are chess pieces, and it doesn't matter if they die. My biggest gain is this." 100-change Star-Lord pointed at the bronze coffin in front of him proudly. "This is your biggest gain? What do you mean?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. 100-change Star-Lord sneered and said, "Anyway, none of you can leave here today, so there's no harm in telling you. This bronze coffin hides a great secret, and if the demons didn't return, I wouldn't know this secret." Tang Zheng was confused, but he also realized the seriousness of the situation. The so-called great secret mentioned by 100-change Star-Lord was definitely not a small matter. Tang Zheng subconsciously looked at the bronze coffin, wondering what kind of great secret was hidden in it that made 100-change Star-Lord mobilize so many people. "What's the secret inside?" Tang Zheng asked. "The secret that I've been searching for," 100-change Star-Lord said mysteriously. Seeing that Tang Zheng still wanted to ask, he added, It's a pity that the villainous heavens are against me. This Tian Chanzi actually followed me all the way here and ruined my plans. After saying this, 100 Change Star Lord glared at Tian Chanzi with hatred and regret. Tang Zheng asked suspiciously, "How did he ruin your plans?" The thing protecting the bronze coffin actually chose to merge with him, increasing his strength in an instant, and using his body to fight against me. Tang Zheng was shocked. Tian Chanzi was not hiding his strength, but had really reached his current strength in a very short time. This was too incredible. The Empyrean fairy also stared at Tian Chanzi with burning eyes, trying to find an answer from him, but it was all in vain. Everything here was full of mystery, and even she did not know. In fact, although the Empyrean fairy had a special identity as the daughter of the Emperor of Heaven, she was trapped in the mountain river map by the Emperor of Heaven for some reason, so she did not know what had happened for a long time. Later, she escaped from the mountain river map and met Qin Shi Huang, who helped her unify the world. Later, she slept in Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum for 1,000 years, so she knew very little about the outside world. Looking at the bronze coffin, she could not find any information related to it in her mind. But there was no doubt that this thing was extraordinary, and must not fall into the hands of 100 Change Star Lord. Humph, but as long as I open the bronze coffin, that power will naturally disappear, and he will no longer be a threat to me, 100 Change Star Lord said complacently. Roar! Tian Chanzi let out a roar and attacked 100 Change Star Lord again, who quickly dodged. Tian Chanzi, can you hear me? Looking at Tian Chanzi's crazy appearance, Tang Zheng wanted to know what had happened to him. 100 Change Star Lord said that Tian Chanzi was being controlled, but what was controlling him? I want to know all these questions, so I called Tian Chanzi to see if he can answer. However, Tian Chanzi turned a deaf ear and continued to attack 100 Change Star Lord fiercely. Ha ha ha, you still want him to answer? He is already being controlled, just like a walking corpse. How can he answer your questions? 100 Change Star Lord laughed disdainfully. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. The words walking corpse fiercely provoked him. Although he often bickered with Tian Chanzi, the two had deep feelings for each other. If not for Tian Chanzi, Tang Zheng would not have everything he had today. He was afraid that he would have failed the college entrance exam, and then exploded and died at the age of 20. Therefore, he and Tian Chanzi had saved each other's lives. They were both very important people in each other's lives, and this kind of relationship could not be cut off. Tang Zheng suddenly turned to Empyrean Fairy and asked, "Is there a way for him to recover?" Empyrean Fairy also stared at Tian Chanzi and said, "Didn't 100 Change Star Lord say that as long as we open the bronze coffin, the power in his body will disappear? Then let's open the bronze coffin." Tang Zheng took a deep look at the bronze coffin. Although this suggestion was very risky, there was no other way. This was the only way to survive. He was willing to take this risk for Tian Chanzi. 100 Change Star Lord was entangled by Tian Chanzi. Hearing this, his face suddenly changed, and his thin body let out a hysterical roar. "Don't open the bronze coffin. It's mine. Don't even think about touching it." Tang Zheng sneered and said, "You can't even protect yourself. What ability do you have to stop us?" 100 Change Star Lord was furious and shouted at the giant, "I didn't resurrect you to let you watch a good show. Stop them at all costs." Roar! The giant let out a long roar. Although it was still entangled by the black gas, it still rushed toward Empyrean Fairy without hesitation. Just now, he had suffered losses from Empyrean Fairy, so this time he was extra careful. Empyrean Fairy did not show any abnormality, and slowly landed. Bang! She stepped on the bronze coffin. The black gas on the bronze coffin quickly retreated in all directions, as if it had met its nemesis. Ha! Not only Tang Zheng, but also Empyrean Fairy stared at her feet in surprise. She was already prepared to fight against the black gas. Now that she was stuck there, the black gas would not hurt her. 100 Change Star Lord's face suddenly changed, and he exclaimed, "Impossible! How did you do this? Who on earth are you?" Tang Zheng laughed and said sarcastically, "Didn't you say that no one could open my bronze coffin? Now it seems that is not necessarily true." 100 Change Star Lord rolled his eyes and said angrily, "If you want to die, open it." "What do you mean?" Tang Zheng and Empyrean Fairy were stunned and stopped moving subconsciously. "There is something very dangerous inside. Except for me, Everyone else will die. 100 Change Star-Lord said solemnly. Tang Zhang and Empyrean Fairy looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. We don't believe you. Stop him. 100 Change Star-Lord roared. The giant finally stood up and attacked Empyrean Fairy. The Empyrean Fairy had already figured out the giant's combat strength, so she was not afraid. Her every move made the giant flustered, and the cliff of the canyon shook, causing rocks to fall. 100 Change Star-Lord was burning with anxiety as he looked at the battered and exhausted giant. However, he could do nothing as he looked at the corpses of the demonic beasts and the white bones on the ground. Seeing that the Heaven Monk was closing in again, the 100 Transformation Star-Lord roared, both of his hands pressed down in the air. Bang bang bang, the corpses of the demonic beasts actually exploded, turning into a bloody mist, and the blood quickly gathered towards the 100 Transformation Star-Lord. He grabbed the air with his hands, and the blood mist turned into bloody claws. Puff, puff, puff. The bloody claws left many wounds on Tian Chanzi's body, and some of them were so deep that his bones could be seen. However, Tian Chanzi did not feel anything and continued to attack 100 Change Star-Lord. Humph. You are courting death. Now, I will use up a lot of my power to defeat you and stop those people. 100 Change Star-Lord made up his mind. Once the bloody claws were formed, their power increased greatly. The sky was filled with bloody claws, and Tian Chanzi was at a disadvantage. His body was also dyed red. Tang Zheng looked at the scene, but there was nothing he could do. He focused on the bronze coffin. Chapter 843. The bronze coffin lay quietly on the ground, surrounded by black gas. Only the place where the Empyrean Fairy stood was free of the black gas. The giant viciously attacked the Empyrean Fairy, forcing her to leave the bronze coffin. Tang Zheng and Linger were the only ones who could move freely. Linger, watch from the side. I'm going to activate it, Tang Zheng said in a deep voice. Linger worriedly warned, Master, be careful. Tang Zheng nodded his head heavily, but he did not touch the bronze coffin with his hands. Instead, he raised War Soul and pierced it into the gap. Whoosh! The black gas was like a cat that had smelled the fishy smell of fish. It quickly scurried over and directly rushed towards the War Soul sword. Tang Zheng's spirit trembled, he quickly circulated his qi, his true qi surged, his sword qi was abundant, it intertwined with the black qi, they were equally matched. Tang Zheng could clearly feel a bone-chilling power coming from the black qi, causing him to shiver uncontrollably. He gritted his teeth and took a deep breath. He thought to himself, I don't believe that I can't deal with you. With a sudden burst of strength, the bronze coffin actually loosened a little, and an earth-shattering yin qi seeped out, making Tang Zheng feel as if he had fallen into an endless ice cave. He forced himself to endure the trembling of his soul and muttered to himself, What's inside? It's so cold. Could it be a corpse? This prehistoric heavenly tomb is a product of the ancient era. If it really was a corpse, it would have already rotted. No, he immediately remembered the Beast King and Qin Shi Huang. These powerful cultivators had ways to preserve their bodies, so there might be a lifelike corpse inside. Xiao Bai sensed Tang Zheng's abnormality and bared his fangs at the bronze coffin as he growled, as if declaring his authority. Then, it opened its little mouth and spat out a stream of flames, which immediately enveloped the bronze coffin. Ah! Tang Zheng was shocked. He didn't expect Xiao Bai to be so bold as to spit fire. Needless to say, as soon as the flames appeared, the bone-chilling feeling disappeared by a lot. The key was that the black gas seemed to have met its nemesis and retreated with whooshing sounds. Tang Zheng suddenly had an idea and said, You still want to escape? Xiao Bai, trap this black gas. The giant bronze coffin was related to Tian Chanzi's life and death, so Tang Zheng couldn't be careless. After giving the order, Xiao Bai spat out a few more balls of flames, trapping all the black gas. The black gas struggled left and right in the flames, but it was unable to break through the defense of the flames. It was like a trapped beast, struggling futilely. Without the restriction of the black qi, Tang Zheng's strength increased greatly. With a ding sound, the War Soul sword bent slightly and finally opened up a large crack. The flames on the bronze coffin had already disappeared, so Tang Zheng held the coffin lid with both hands and let out a low roar. The coffin lid was as heavy as 1,000 caddies. Rise! Tang Zheng used his strength and the coffin lid moved bit by bit. Stop! Tian Chanzi shouted with all his might. His voice was completely different from usual, giving off a creepy feeling. Before he finished speaking, he had already abandoned the 100-change Star-Lord and attacked Tang Zhang. The black gas in his hand changed shape and turned into a long spear. Whiz! The air surged and automatically divided into 2 rows. The long spear shot towards Tang Zheng's back. Linga hurriedly shouted, "Master, be careful." Then, she bravely blocked Tang Zheng's back. Tang Zheng had an idea. He shouted and used all his strength. The War Soul sword bent to the limit and was about to break. Bang! The coffin lid flew up and hit the cliff with a muffled sound. Seeing that the long spear was about to pierce through Linger's chest, Xiaobai quickly transformed. His feet stepped on flames and even his body was burning with raging flames. Boom! A monstrous flame wrapped around the long spear. The long spear's attack decreased sharply and stopped in front of Linger, unable to advance any further. Linger's face was filled with determination. Even if the long spear did not stop, she would definitely not retreat half a step. The coffin lid opened and Tian Chanzi let out a blood-curdling scream. The long spear directly exploded and turned into nothingness. No one expected this scene. They could not help but be shocked. Even the 100-change Star-Lord was dumbstruck. He stomped his feet hatefully. "He actually beat me to it." Tang Zheng could no longer care about the situation behind him. He stretched his neck and looked into the bronze coffin. When he saw the situation inside the coffin, his face changed greatly. His eyes widened and he was flabbergasted. It was as if he had seen a ghost. He took a few steps back before stopping. Everyone looked at his reaction in disbelief. They could not help but mutter in their hearts. What exactly did he see in the bronze coffin to have such a big reaction? Furthermore, it was obvious that he was frightened. "Tang Zheng, what's wrong with you?" Empyrean Fairy pushed back the giant and asked curiously. Ling Er also stared at Tang Zheng, wondering why her master had such a big reaction. Even the 100-change Star-Lord was not in a hurry to rush over to take a look. He wanted to know what was inside. In fact, he only knew a little about the situation inside the bronze coffin and did not know the details. Last time, when he was on the island nation, he used the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array to welcome the return of the Devil Clan. Although there were only 100 of them, their cultivations were not weak. Furthermore, they brought him an unexpected news. It turned out that the return of the Devil Clan this time was to prepare for the return of the entire Devil Clan. Back then, when the Devil God returned, it did not have much of an effect. Therefore, the Devil Clan finally found a glimmer of hope this time. It turned out that the Devil Clan had accidentally discovered a secret of the Devil Clan's ancestor, and that was a huge bronze coffin. This huge bronze coffin was buried in the prehistoric heavenly tomb in the 10,000 huge mountains. There was no reliable evidence as to who was buried in this huge bronze coffin, but one thing was certain. There was a huge secret hidden within, a secret that was enough to change this world. Originally, the 100-change Star-Lord did not believe the words of the Devil Clan, but after the other party swore and even sent an elite to follow him back to the 10,000 huge mountains, he gradually believed it. As for the Devil Clan on that ship, it was just bait. The 100-change Star-Lord had long since had a certain understanding of this modern society, and knew that his actions in the island nation could not be hidden from the authorities. Thus, he might as well build a plank road and secretly send those Devil Clan-s to their deaths, while he brought an elite Devil Clan-s to quietly return to the 10,000 huge mountains. The two sides worked together and investigated the entire way. In the end, they found this canyon in the prehistoric heavenly tomb. The Devil Clan was certain that the bronze coffin was right below. However, legend had it that the bronze coffin was as heavy as Mount Tai. Even the 100-change Star-Lord was unable to bring it up by himself. The 100-change Star-Lord had raised a question. Why couldn't they just go down to the bottom of the canyon and open the bronze coffin? Why did they have to go through so much trouble to get the bronze coffin out? The Devil Clan was clearly prepared and gave a convincing answer. It turned out that there was a mysterious power in the canyon. This power not only protected the bronze coffin, but also imprisoned it. It was as if this was an arrangement made by someone back then. They wanted the bronze coffin to remain silent at the bottom of the canyon, and no one would care about it. If the bronze coffin was opened in the canyon, it would cause a huge reaction. All the people in the canyon would die, and not a single one would be left alive. Only by taking the bronze coffin out and losing the restriction of that mysterious power would the true secret of the bronze coffin be discovered, and there would not be any negative reactions. Therefore, when the 100-change Star-Lord said that he would definitely die after opening the bronze coffin, he was not just trying to scare him. But now that things had come to this, what was done, and there was no turning back. Seeing Tang Zheng retreat as if he had seen a ghost, the 100-change Star-Lord also wanted to take a look at what was inside. But when he remembered the instructions of the Devil Clan, he hesitated. Those Devil Clan members had already died at the hands of Tian Chanzi, so they would not be able to see this scene, let alone use this opportunity to let the Devil Clan return. The 100-change Star-Lord did not care about the demands of the inner demons. Now, he only had eyes for the bronze coffin. How could this be? How could this be? Tang Zheng muttered to himself, as if he was possessed. The Empyrean Fairy and Linger stood on either side of him worriedly. They shook his arm and asked, "What did you see?" Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to them and continued to exclaim, "Too inconceivable, too inconceivable." The 100-change Star-Lord finally could not take it anymore. His heart felt like it was being clawed by a cat. In a flash, he rushed toward the bronze coffin. The Empyrean Fairy also wanted to rush over, but she was half a beat slower. The 100-change Star-Lord also stood in the air above the bronze coffin. A pair of big eyes stared at it without blinking. His whole body shook violently, and his face became extremely ugly. He muttered to himself, "How could it be me? How could it be me?" The Empyrean Fairy was confused. Finally, she rushed over and took a closer look. A familiar face came into view. There was a person lying in the bronze coffin. She was very lifelike, and her face was ruddy. The most inconceivable thing was that she was the Empyrean Fairy. The Empyrean Fairy felt like she was looking into a mirror. Seeing a person who looked exactly like her lying in the bronze coffin, she was afraid that anyone would be stimulated. She was alive and well, so why was she lying in the bronze coffin? Moreover, this bronze coffin had been buried here for many years. If someone had found an identical person and placed her inside, it could not be so coincidental. The Empyrean Fairy shook her head and took a few steps back. She muttered to herself, "Impossible, what is going on?" Tang Zheng, the Empyrean Fairy and the 100-change Star-Lord all had the same reaction. Linger also wanted to go over and see what was going on, but Tang Zheng stopped her and said, "Don't go." Linger stared at Tang Zheng with her big black eyes and asked, "Master, what is inside that made the three of you have such a big reaction?" Tang Zheng swallowed his saliva and hesitated for a long time. Then he said, "There is a person who looks exactly like me inside." Tang Zheng suspected that one of them was a celestial who just so happened to look exactly like him. But there was no such coincidence in this world. Linger covered her mouth and cried out in alarm, "Master, you are alive and standing here, how can it be you inside?" Chapter 844. The 9 Heavens Mystical Maiden and the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign both looked as if they had seen a ghost as they stared at Tang Zheng without blinking. "You said you were in the bronze coffin?" Tang Zheng looked at the two of them blankly and nodded subconsciously. Yes, he saw it clearly. Could it be wrong? The Empyrean Fairy had an idea and asked the 100 Faces Star-Lord, "What did you see?" "Myself." The 100 Faces Star-Lord hesitated for a moment and said truthfully. The Empyrean Fairy's mouth twitched and muttered, "I also saw myself." Immediately, the three of them felt a headache. Why did the three of them see themselves in the bronze coffin? There was clearly only one person lying there, so why were there 3 faces? It was not only the face but every part of the body was exactly the same as them. How could they be wrong? The three of them were deep in thought, but they could not figure it out. Tian Chanzi's body was steaming with black gas, making him look extremely sinister. He laughed strangely and said, "I told you not to open the bronze coffin. You are courting death, so you can't blame others." Tang Zheng stared at Tian Chanzi and said, "100 Faces Star-Lord, didn't you say that Tian Chanzi would recover if we opened the bronze coffin? Why is he still like this?" The 100 Faces Star-Lord was at a loss and said, "How would I know?" That jade-like naughty face, coupled with that aggrieved expression, was especially confusing. If it was anyone else, they would definitely treat him as a harmless child. Tang Zheng, however, would not be blinded by this and said, "No matter what is inside, in short, there is a problem." Tian Chanzi said with certainty that they were dead, so how could they just sit there and wait for death? The Hundred Faces Star-Lord heard this and his face suddenly sank. He waved his small hand and a bloody light rushed towards the bronze coffin. No matter who was inside, he had to make the first move and kill them. Tian Chanzi did not stop him, but looked at them with a cold smile. The bloody light rushed into the bronze coffin, but nothing happened. The wind was calm and the waves were calm. The silence was a bit excessive. The Hundred Faces Star-Lord's face changed slightly. He was very clear about the power of his attack, but it was like throwing a stone into the sea. There was no reaction at all, not even a ripple. He did not give up and wanted to attack again, but there was a sound from the bronze coffin. Immediately, everyone was shocked. Could it be that there was a living thing inside? Tian Chanzi said with a sinister smile. You are all dead. Their faces were filled with indignation. Were they doomed? It was too early to make a conclusion. Someone in the bronze coffin stood up. There were 3 people. Tang Zheng, the Empyrean Fairy, and the Hundred Faces Star-Lord. The 3 of them looked exactly the same as them. Even the Hundred Faces Star Sovereign, who was good at transformation, could not help but feel his eyelids twitch. Just a mere illusion, illusion, illusion. Illusion, 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 illusion. See how? See! He roared loudly and madly attacked the person who looked exactly like him. Bang! He directly attacked his opponent's body. But his opponent didn't move at all. Instead, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth as he looked at him with an evil aura. Even though the Hundred Faces Star-Lord was experienced and had a strong mind, he could not help but tremble when he saw this. What are you? The Hundred Faces Star-Lord looked at him and smiled. He did not say a word and continued to walk toward him. Faced with this strange situation, the Hundred Faces Star-Lord was furious. He roared, I don't believe I can't deal with you. In an instant, he unleashed all of his skills, and all of his powerful moves were thrown at his opponent. But everything was like a stone sinking into the sea. There was no reaction at all. The other 2 people also walked toward their opponents. The Empyrean Fairy saw herself walking over and subconsciously took a few steps back. She did not attack rashly. Instead, she observed her opponent's actions, hoping to figure out what was going on and find a flaw. But she found that it was almost wishful thinking. She did not find any flaw. On the other hand, although Tang Zheng was panicking, when he saw himself getting closer and closer, that trace of panic was unknowingly suppressed. He narrowed his eyes and stared at the other party. He found that the closer the other party got, the blurrier it became. When he was only a meter away from Tang Zheng, he could not see his appearance clearly. He could not tell that it was himself. What's going on? Tang Zheng subconsciously turned his head to look at the other 2. Their reactions were completely different from his. The Hundred Faces Star-Lord was attacking relentlessly, while the Empyrean Fairy was dodging. She did not want to come into direct contact with herself. Only he was the quietest, especially when he saw the blurry image. He was sure that although he did not know what was going on, his situation was completely different from the other 2. Something must have gone wrong. The blurry shadow continued to walk toward him. Tang Zheng could no longer sit still and watch. The war soul in his hand blazed. Whiz! He slashed at the opponent. Ow! A sharp roar rang out, and the shadow began to transform rapidly. Why aren't you affected? Tang Zheng's heart moved. Could it be that this was the voice of that terrifying thing? It did sound strange, but when he looked at the others, they did not have the slightest reaction. It was as if they did not hear this voice at all. Strange. Tang Zheng did not know why he was not affected. Instead, he said with a firm expression, What exactly are you? How can you bewitch people? Tang Zheng could already confirm that the 3 of them saw him in the bronze ball was an illusion. It was just that the illusion was too realistic. Even the Hundred Faces Star-Lord could not distinguish it. But why was it that when the other party walked out of the bronze coffin, especially when they were closer to him, the illusion did not work? Tang Zheng was puzzled, but without a doubt, this was a good sign. Without the influence of the illusion, he could wholeheartedly deal with the other party. He could still see the predicament of the Hundred Faces Star-Lord and the Empyrean Fairy, so he loudly reminded them not to panic. However, he found that no one could hear him. It was as if he was isolated from the world. Although he could clearly see everything around him, it was as if he was not a person of this world. It was close at hand, but far away at the end of the world. What kind of magic did you use? Tang Zheng angrily asked. The shadow circled around Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng sternly waited, not daring to slack off. He tightly gripped the war soul in his hand, his palms slowly dripping with cold sweat. Finally, the shadow opened its mouth and said in realization, I finally understand. You do not have inner demons, so you are not affected. Inner demons. Tang Zheng's head moved. He remembered the mirror he saw on the 4th floor of the Langya Pavilion. Wasn't the exorcist mirror an item to expel the inner demons? In the Langya Pavilion, his inner demons had been dispelled, so his cultivation speed was faster and he could focus more. However, he did not expect that there would be a pleasant surprise. Even the 100 Faces Star-Lord and the Empyrean Fairy were affected. He was the only one who was slightly affected at first, but in the end, he was completely fine. In this point, he surpassed the 2 experts. Who exactly are you? Why don't you have inner demons? The shadow asked incredulously. Tang Zheng sneered. And who are you? You can actually control people's inner demons? Ha ha ha. A series of strange laughter sounded. Who am I? Humph. I am the person everyone is afraid of. That's why they imprisoned me here. What a bunch of cowards. Who imprisoned you? You wouldn't know even if I told you. If I see them again, I will definitely tear them into pieces. No, I will let them kill each other. Haha, I will watch the show from the side. The shadow laughed wildly. Tang Zheng's heart jumped. This shadow spoke mysteriously, but it didn't seem to be deliberately mystifying, which meant that he was definitely not an ordinary ruthless character. Moreover, this prehistoric heavenly tomb had existed since ancient times, and had already existed for tens of thousands of years. Then, this shadow must have been imprisoned here even earlier. There were many experts in that era, so he couldn't guess who had imprisoned him. You keep saying that others are cowards, but until now, you still haven't revealed your true face. You only know how to brag. Do you dare to say your name? Tang Zheng provoked. Who am I? Of course I won't forget, and there's no need to be mysterious. As long as they hear my name, everyone will be scared silent, or even scared out of their wits. The shadow said confidently. Then tell me. Listen up, I am the most powerful person in the world. Inner demons. The shadow said firmly. Inner demons? Tang Zheng was startled. Haha, are you scared? The inner demons were proud of themselves. Tang Zheng wasn't scared at all. He was confused. He reacted as if he had just woken up from a dream and said, Tisk, you're scared. You think too highly of yourself. What? You're not scared? Have you never heard of my illustrious name? The inner demons was very surprised and shouted, Forgive me for my shallow knowledge, but I have never heard of your name. Tang Zheng used the exorcist mirror to expel his own inner demons, but he had never heard of any expert in this world called inner demons. Impossible. My inner demons is very famous. Everyone in the world knows about it. How could you not have heard of it? The inner demons were unconvinced and said angrily. Tang Zheng snorted disdainfully. You're just bragging about yourself. Nonsense. My inner demons don't need to brag about themselves. If I wasn't so powerful, how could I be imprisoned here? Humph, everyone has their inner demons, and I can control their inner demons and thus control everyone. Do you think they won't be afraid of me? Tang Zheng's head dropped. This person's words were so convincing that it didn't seem like he was lying. It was true that everyone had their inner demons, but to control someone's inner demons was a bit of a fantasy. But there was nothing absolute in this world, and everything was possible. If this person could really control the inner demons, then he could indirectly control everyone. This was indeed a heaven-defying ability, and this person was a heaven-defying existence. He wasn't like other experts. Other experts could destroy others, but they couldn't completely control others. This person could control others and use them for himself. Chapter 845. You're the weirdest. You don't have inner demons and aren't affected by me. I shouldn't let a person like you live in this world. The inner demon said fiercely. I don't have inner demons in my body. You can't control me, so how are you going to kill me? Haha, there's no need for me to do it myself. If someone does it, as long as I control the two of them, do you think you can still survive with your cultivation? The inner demon said proudly. Tang Zheng's head trembled. It was indeed so. As long as either the Empyrean Fairy or the 100 Faces Star-Lord fell into the control of the inner demons, then Tang Zheng would definitely not be able to get anything out of it. Seeing that the two of them were not in a good situation, Tang Zheng knew that he could no longer stand by and watch. The first thing he had to do was to break through this strange illusion. Break for me! Tang Zheng bellowed, holding onto the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrow in his hands. The bowstring trembled, and the shooting sun arrow shot out into the sky. Heaven-shocking bow. Shooting sun arrow. The inner demons actually recognized the two divine weapons at a glance and exclaimed. Tang Zheng laughed coldly, only to hear a shattering sound. The scene in front of his eyes changed, creating circles of ripples. The shooting sun arrow unimpeded struck the rock wall, causing rocks to fly everywhere. The scene in front of him changed, and Tang Zheng actually realized that the 100 Faces Star-Lord was already on the verge of death, and was actually attacking the air non-stop. And the Empyrean Fairy was also continuously dodging. There was no one in front of him. There was no second 100 Faces Star-Lord or Empyrean Fairy in this canyon, and even the shadow in front of Tang Zheng had disappeared without a trace. Tang Zheng was flabbergasted, so everything from before was an illusion, created by the inner demons controlling people's hearts, so no matter how the 100 Faces Star-Lord attacked, it would not have any effect. This was because he was attacking the air. As for the Empyrean Fairy, no matter how she dodged, that imaginary self would always follow her like a shadow, because it was an illusion constructed by her heart. Tang Zheng's head trembled, looking at this scene. He was deeply shocked. No wonder the inner demons were so confident. He really did have the strength. Even experts like the 100 Faces Star-Lord and the Empyrean Fairy had only taken a glance inside the bronze coffin, and they had been tricked by him. As for Ling Er and Little White, they looked at this scene with curiosity. They didn't look into the bronze coffin, so they weren't affected. You people. Inner demons. You. You people. The inner demons. You will suffer the consequences of your own actions. Everything was happening right under his nose. He was powerless. From the moment the bronze coffin was opened, he could do nothing. His power was quickly draining away. Suddenly, he looked at the culprit of all this, Tang Zheng. If he had not opened the coffin without permission, then none of this would have happened. But when he looked at Tang Zheng, he was shocked and shouted, "You! Why are you not affected?" Tang Zheng looked at Tian Chanzi with a complicated expression and said, "Tian Chanzi, get better quickly. I am Tang Zheng." Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Zheng coldly and said, "Tang Zheng, why are you not affected by the inner demons?" "My inner demons have been eliminated. They can't affect me." Tian Chanzi stared at Tang Zheng in disbelief and exclaimed, "The inner demons have been eliminated? How did you do it?" Tang Zheng did not answer and said, "You are not Tian Chanzi. Why did you take over his body? Leave him quickly. You still have the time to care about him. Your top priority is to deal with the inner demons. If the inner demons appear, not only will you die, but the world will also be in chaos." Tian Chanzi said solemnly. Tang Zheng said that Tian Chanzi's words were reasonable. They had to deal with the inner demons first. Otherwise, if they let him control anyone and escape, then it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. It was almost impossible to find him. However, whether it was the 100 Faces Star-Lord or the Empyrean Fairy, he was no match for them. So, he turned his eyes and stared at the bronze coffin. He rushed toward the bronze coffin with big strides. Tian Chanzi looked at his actions and did not stop him. He sighed in his heart. Success or failure depended on this one move. If there was no Tang Zheng, an anomaly without the inner demons, this would be a dead end. No one would be able to escape. With such an anomaly, there might be a ray of hope. "Master, be careful." Linger was scared stiff. The changes in the scene were beyond her imagination. Tang Zheng nodded slightly. Just as he was about to rush to the bronze coffin, a huge body blocked his way. A giant. He actually came to block Tang Zheng and howled. He was not affected, so he was still anxious to carry out the 100 Faces Star-Lord's order to not let Tang Zheng get close to the bronze coffin. "Get out of my way!" Tang Zheng hysterically roared. Time was of the essence and could not be delayed, But this big guy still blocked his way without hesitation. He was really unlucky. The giant was indifferent. Instead, he kicked at him. The wind was biting cold, and a huge pressure fell from the sky. Tang Zheng was angry and anxious. He drew his bow and shot the shooting sun arrow directly at the giant's foot. Blood splattered. The shooting sun arrow directly penetrated the giant's foot. The giant was in pain. He howled and staggered back. Tang Zheng took advantage of this good opportunity. His body flashed, and he went around the giant, arriving in front of the bronze coffin. Indeed, there was a person lying in the bronze coffin. This person's face was ruddy and handsome. He was a middle-aged uncle whose appearance was not inferior to the 100 Faces Star-Lord. His originally tightly shut eyes suddenly opened, and his pair of eyes seemed to have a soul-sucking demonic power as he stared straight at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng felt as if his soul was about to leave his body. He hurriedly channeled his energy and guarded his mind. Although he did not have the inner demons, his heart was still stirred by the other's eyes. It was enough to show the other's strength. "You want to kill me?" The inner demon stood up. He was dressed in ancient clothing. His black hair fluttered in the wind. The corner of his mouth hung an incomparably mysterious smile. "So this is the true face of the inner demons," Tang Zheng said fiercely. "I do want to kill you. You intimidate people's souls. You must die." The inner demons laughed disapprovingly. "If I was so easy to kill, then they could have just killed me back then. Why would they go through so much trouble to imprison me here?" Tang Zheng's head thumped. The inner demon's words were reasonable. The ancient people were so powerful that they could only imprison each other. This meant that the inner demons could not be casually killed. But seeing the inner demons in front of him and the war soul sword could pierce his chest at any time, Tang Zheng felt that he could not let go of this great opportunity. The Empyrean fairy was hanging by a thread. If he did not make a move, then the inner demons would control her. No matter what, this was a result that Tang Zheng could not accept. "What are you waiting for? Kill him with one strike," Tian Chanzi urged. The inner demons looked at Tian Chanzi with a smile and said, "You are a remnant soul left behind by that person. Now you are attached to this person's body in an attempt to stop them from opening the bronze coffin. Unfortunately, you still failed." Tian Chanzi's expression kept changing. He did not say a word. The inner demon looked around and stared at the deep and terrifying cliff, saying, "You used the place with the densest evil qi to imprison me. It's a pity that the evil qi has consumed a lot of my power over the years. But as long as I come out, this world will still be mine." Tang Zheng muttered in his heart. Previously, the 100 Faces Star-Lord said that he had to pull the bronze coffin up to open it. Now it seemed that pulling it up was more serious than opening the coffin at the bottom of the canyon. Could it be that the 100 Faces Star-Lord was deceived by the Demon Clan? The Demon Clan did not tell them the truth. Once the bronze coffin was pulled up, without the suppression of the baleful qi, the inner demons would become stronger. This was equivalent to helping the inner demons. The 100 Faces Star-Lord was indeed deceived by the Demon Clan. The Demon Clan was incomparably cunning. Although the 100 Faces Star-Lord helped them return, how could they easily believe him? Therefore, they used a fact and not a lie to deceive him. It was a pity that the Demon Clan's luck was not good. Before they could open the coffin, they were all killed by Tian Chanzi. Of course, the Demon Clan knew the power of the inner demons. This was a very risky operation, but the Demon Clan had another plan. The Demon Clan planned to all submit to the inner demons and follow this powerful new master to expand their territory. It would not take long for the entire world to belong to the Demon Clan. This was a huge sacrifice. However, the Demon Clan in the sky beyond sky was not as strong as before. They had no choice but to make this plan. However, as long as the Demon Clan's power and glory could be guaranteed, they were willing to worship the inner demons as their masters. It had to be said that the Demon Clan did not play by the rules. They were willing to make such a huge sacrifice. Of course, once they succeeded, the rewards would be huge. Unifying the world was a magnificent feat that countless generations of the Demon Clan had not been able to achieve. If Tang Zheng knew the whole story, he would probably be amazed by the boldness and strangeness of the current master of the Demon Clan. Of course, the Demon Clan was dead, and no one knew about this. Looking at the complacent inner demons, Tang Zheng gnashed his teeth and said, Why are you talking so much nonsense? You think I don't dare to kill you, right? Then you are completely wrong. Go to hell. Tang Zheng stabbed out with his sword. No! A cry of alarm came from Tian Chanzi's mouth. This was Tian Chanzi's original voice. Tang Zheng was startled, but it was too late. The War Soul sword pierced the inner demon's chest. Fresh blood gushed out and dyed the War Soul sword red. The inner demons did not resist or even dodge. Tang Zheng found it inconceivable. The inner demons were so strong, they should at least have some dodging movements. Like a puppet, they allowed the War Soul sword to pierce their chest. This was too strange. Tang Zheng had a bad premonition. Why didn't you dodge? The inner demon said indifferently, my combat ability is not strong. I am inferior to you. How can I dodge? I might as well take your sword. Tang Zheng scratched his head, but he could not guess the inner demon's plan. If you don't fight back, won't you die? You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.